stays in Utah. Come by where we're at today, which is 9786 South Sandy Parkway. That's 9786 South Sandy Parkway. Patients need your help this holiday season. A lot of people snowmobiling, skiing, doing some dangerous activities, and therefore accidents happen. And the need never slows down. They're constantly behind. Donations only take about 30 minutes, so give the gift of life this holiday season at ARUP Blood Services. And we shouldn't need to incentivize you to give back to your community. However, we will do that for you today. If you donate blood, you get a $10 Megaplex gift card. If you donate platelets, you get a $20 Amazon gift card. And every day each December, you're entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card. And they pull one winner every single day. So come on by, say hi at 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. You can check out the website at utahblood.org. Give them a call if you have questions at 801-584-5272. Open 7 days a week. So we are hoping you guys will roll by and literally help save a life today at ARUP Blood Services. We'd love to see you and say hello. So that's where we'll be. We'll be here until about 6 o'clock tonight on this Wednesday afternoon after a fun day out and about yesterday with our friends at Advanced Windows, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber. We're out and about at ARUP Blood Services today. All right, a lot to get to on the show. So A.J. DeBanza, the young man who committed to Brigham Young University to play his college basketball, had some conversations with some people over the course of the past 24 hours or so and have a better understanding of exactly how this all went down. And also, after really digging in a way that I haven't prior to the announcement, some thoughts on who this young man is and some thoughts on who he could be and what this means for the landscape of college basketball in the state and what it means for the landscape of college basketball for BYU. And if you're the University of Utah, are you looking at your rival 45 miles down south or so and wondering what's going on? What's in the water? What's in the swig, right? Obviously, the football season was something that we were it was very unexpected with BYU doing what they did and Utah just falling flat on their face. So we'll get to some of that on the show today. It's literally a historic announcement that took place in our market, so we're going to get into it on the show. Speaking of the University of Utah, transfer portal continues to, so far, bring mostly bad news. Now, transfer portal barely opened. It will close on the 28th. And you don't have to decide where you want to play by the 28th, but you have to be in the portal. Okay, one thing I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. So we'll keep you up to date on who Utah has lost, some rumors about who they may add, no official word on who the potential starting quarterback is going to be. Plenty of time between now and then to figure it out. But topically, Utah football, top of mind right now, because I do think there's a lot of curiosity from the marketplace and the community as far as how they're going to put this thing back together, because it's going to be an entirely different new team next year. Some thoughts on the college football bowl season, some thoughts on college football and the future of what college football could look like when it comes to the bowl projections, the CFP bracket. There are a lot of angry people in the SEC. Greg Sankey sat down with Ross Dellinger from Yahoo. Ross is a friend of the show. And the SEC not thrilled about how all this is going down. So what does the future of this look like? Not just the portal, not just NIL, but the expanded CFP bracket. Will it be expanded even more? What will the SEC and the Big Ten decide to do if they're not happy with the current setup? And apparently, according to what Ross wrote today, a lot of powerful people in college football not happy with the current setup. As far as the NBA goes, it is NBA Cup week, so it's kind of a silent, quiet night when it comes to Jazz basketball specifically. There will be an action coming up on Friday against the Suns. Tonight you've got a double dip on Turner. It's Atlanta and New York from the Garden, and then it's Golden State and Houston. So a couple of good games as the NBA Cup rolls on. And if you are a Jazz fan, how connected are you to this season? Are you going to games? Are you watching games? And are you just kind of disenchanted with the entire process? Or are you looking ahead with a little hope based off of some excitement with some of these prospects? One who will be playing in our state, at least for 1 year. So we'll get into that on the show. We got a lot to do. We've got a good guest list on the program today. We'll start things off with a little pro and college football with Sam Bruckhouse, good friend of the show. Sam stops by from time to time. Week 15 in pro football. We'll get rolling on Thursday night. Coming up tomorrow, it's the Rams and the Niners. You can hear that game on our radio station. We are your home of the NFL here in the market. So San Fran is a 3-point favorite despite missing like 17 running backs and a bunch of different pieces. That's at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. A lot of big games coming up. Week 15 in the NFL. Utah Hockey Club. We'll get into some Utah Hockey Club news on the show today as the NHL continues to make their way towards the kind of the same space in pro basketball. The calendars and the schedules are very similar. So around holiday season, both in pro basketball and pro hockey, is when you start to understand which teams are actually really good, understand which teams might be looking to make a move. And the Utah Hockey Club, kind of like the Utah Jazz, well-positioned to add talent should they decide to do that because of their clean books and draft capital. They lost last night to the Wild. Fun, entertaining game. 5-4 was the final. They're going to be at Colorado coming up tomorrow. So the latest on the Utah Hockey Club, latest on the Utah Jazz, the landscape, local landscape of college football, college basketball, with one eye, of course, on all the national stuff as well. On this Wednesday afternoon, after Sam rolls by, we'll catch up with Richard Smith. Smitty's going to be live on site. 40 years with the Jazz front office. If you've ever wanted to meet Smitty, I'm telling you he's the best. Come by and shake his hand and say hello. He's going to be live here today at ARUP Blood Services at 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Come on by, save a life, donate some blood, and get hooked up with some great snacks and some great gift cards as well. Neil Smith, it's our behind-the-glass NHL Utah Hockey Club conversation with the former general manager of the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders today, which is Neil Smith. That comes your way coming up at 4 o'clock. And then our guy Andy Larson from the Salt Lake Tribune, who covers the Utah Jazz, and was, I'm sure, curious with the CONCACAF Champions Cup, whatever the hell they're calling it, the draw. And we'll tell you who RSL is going to play. I know it's mid-December, so you're pining for some RSL soccer. But we do have the CONCACAF's fun. If you've never experienced it, it's a really cool regional tournament. We're going to have a really good, exciting team up here to play RSL. And RSL actually made a player edition, too, over the past week or so. So we'll get a little RSL with Andy in addition to the latest on the Utah Jazz. Sam Bruckhouse, Richard Smith, Neil Smith, Andy Larson, me, Spence Checketts, live today. ARUP Blood Services, 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Back in downtown Salt Lake City is where we find ourselves, the producer of this program, Porter Larson, on a Wednesday. I'm going to give you a little credit, young man. You have been, I don't want to speak for you, but I would say you've been a little bit disappointed with the social reaction of Utah football fans over the course of the past couple of months. And I got to say, over the past 24 hours, just kind of kicking the tires on the way people are feeling, there's a real Chicken Little sky is falling element to the fan base here in Salt Lake as a result of, a couple of rough years with injuries and losses, and maybe your rival adding some pretty exciting things, losing players and coming off a really rough season. Does it feel like to you there are a lot of Utah fans, at least the brave ones online, that don't love what we're seeing right now with the Utes?
Oh, and certainly. But what I'll also say is that, their frustrations are understood in a lot of ways. I get it. I think the main point here, Spence, is that these are our fans that have been kind of they've been able to avoid the cyclical nature of college football for a long time. Now, there were 2 5 and 7 years to start the Pac-12, but in relation to other teams that make the Power 5 jump, that's actually better than just about anyone has ever done outside of, I think, Louisville and Utah. So, it's one thing to have a down year, but when you have a couple of down years in the way that the Utes had them, the emotions that were involved, and the way that it all went down, I understand the frustration. I just think that a lot of Utah fans would be doing themselves a service and benefiting themselves if they just took a step back, looked at maybe other programs around the country, their 20-year span, what they usually look like and how cyclical it really is, and just take a deep breath. Understand that you've been very privileged to avoid that for the most part for almost 20 years and a little longer maybe. I think that this is, again, a cycle that will reverse in some form or fashion. And we'll be back talking about a really competitive and really good Utah team in the near future. But as you mentioned, a lot of things to be answered before that can be a reality.
No doubt, no doubt. It's going to be a long off season, but I wouldn't jump to any conclusions. And let me add this before we get to the opening tip. You can always not tweet.
Yes.
You can always not tweet. You can, that's just, it's one course of action that's there for your consideration that you can always, not tweet on a Wednesday. All right, our first guest today, Sam Bruckhouse, to talk some football, live at ARUP Blood Services. Before we get to Sam, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too, down at Standard Restaurant Supply. It's your one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. It is time now for your opening tip. Man, there's just so much to get to today. So let's do a couple of the hot button topic stories that are going on right now, and then we'll kind of move to some other situations with our guests that include Sam Bruckhouse, Richard Smith, Neil Smith, and Andy Larson. So as we were finishing up the show yesterday, shout out to Jake Weber, Nate Orchard, Advanced Windows. News came down that Cam Calhoun, defensive back, dynamic player in Utah secondary, had hit the transfer portal. Now, this was after, maybe 4 or 5 days prior to Cam sending out on his socials that I think it was a Utah man, the Fano brothers, a lot of people tweeting that out. And then ultimately, a couple days later, Cameron Calhoun, who is a freshman, he was a freshman last year, decided to enter the portal. Now, the math here is very obvious. It just means somebody contacted Cam and offered him a grip of money to play for them. And according to our buddy Jason Batakiao and his reporting to the Salt Lake Tribune, Cam Calhoun was offered, quote, nearly double his NIL money to enter the transfer portal. So far, at least in my opinion, respectfully for all these young men, most of the players Utah has lost via transfer portal are replaceable. And I'm not saying Cameron is not. What I am saying is he was a major impact player for the Utes. 9 pass breakups, 1 pick, 21 tackles. His 9 pass breakups were the most on the team. And again, he was a freshman, so he's got a lot of time left to play. Since he made his call, he has announced offers from Maryland, Wisconsin, both out of the Big Ten. And he also announced he was offered by Louisville, BYU, Miami, and Houston. So, the Big Ten schools are what makes you nervous because there is a chance that Cameron comes back to play for the Utes. That's kind of the thing that's lost in the shuffle. When you see a player simply say he's hitting the portal, it doesn't mean he's leaving. It means he could, and oftentimes they do, but there still is the option on the table for Cam to come back and play at Utah. The problem is when you have Big Ten or SEC schools in the mix, their bankrolls are just different. Their revenue shares are just different. Their media deals are better. They have more money. And that is essentially what is kind of the undercurrent, I should say, of the nervous feelings of folks around here about what the future of Utah football could look like. Because you simply, if you are not in the Big Ten or the SEC, if you're not one of the schools in those 2 member conferences, you have to have a donor with super deep pockets that is willing to bankroll you to make up the gap. And it's become pretty clear that Brigham Young has that donor in Ryan Smith, at least for now. And while I still believe there are folks out there with very deep pockets that care about Utah athletics and Utah football that will step up to the plate, at this point, I'm not sure that we've seen anything tangible to indicate they have, to the level that other schools seem to, as of today, being able to rise up. Right? So real quick, before you catch a break, I referenced Ryan Smith and what he's clearly doing to bankroll a good portion of the BYU basketball NIL endeavors. Well, as we talked about for opening tip yesterday, A.J. Debanza, heading to Brigham Young, has broken people's minds. And I was listening to a bunch of college basketball pods last night and today to learn a little bit more about A.J. I watched a bunch of tape on him last night. First of all, he is he is everything that you're hearing and probably more. throughout my career doing this and then prior to in front offices and doing some scouting, I've seen hundreds of thousands of high school and college basketball games. And the fact of the matter is the guys that are in the area of like top 25 to top 150, the line of delineation between those prospects, it's pretty small. And it's hard to really ascertain what's real and what's not. The dudes that are different, you can tell in 5 minutes, and this kid is different. Okay, so A.J. Debinsa is essentially being paid between $5 and $7 million to play basketball at BYU for 5 months. He and his father went on First Take and said A.J. is one and done. So Ryan or whoever, Brigham Young, whoever, they are paying this kid $5 million for, or $5 to $6 to $7 million for 5 months of basketball, and it's worth it. Okay, later on in the show, I'm going to talk about what this could mean for BYU, not what it does, but what it could, because in the past, we have examples of blue-chip prospects who have decided to take more of an unconventional path. And BYU, for a player like this, is unconventional. Ben Simmons is the one who comes to mind. He went to LSU, obviously an SEC school. In the past, some decent basketball teams, but not a Duke or a Carolina or a Kansas or whatever. And that was a dumpster fire. It was thought to open up the avenues for LSU basketball to be awesome for a long, long time, and it didn't work out. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here because I think Kevin Young is building a program that's sustainable. But as of right now, I mean, A.J. Debinsa, okay, before we catch a break, I'll tell you this. Cooper Flagg is the odds-on favorite to be the number one pick this year. In 2027, there's a kid named Tyron Stokes who's awesome, who's already thought to be the number one pick in the 2027 draft. A.J. Debinsa, odds-on favorite to be the number one pick in the 2026 draft. There's an informal poll out there of NBA scouts. Between Flagg, Debinsa, and Stokes, who would you take if they were all in the same draft? Debinsa outpaced them together. He got more votes himself than Stokes and Cooper Flagg did together. So that's the type of talent we're talking about, man. That was a game-changing day yesterday, a historic day for BYU basketball. And I only go down to Provo if I'm in the mood for a little swig. But I might have to go down and watch a little college basketball coming up when AJ's in town next year. All right, we are out and about today at ARUP Blood Services. I've been coming out here for a number of years. 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. And our friend Deb Jordan stops by on a Wednesday. Deb, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much.
Now, we shouldn't need to incentivize people to save lives, but we're not above that. So we're doing that today. What are we giving our listeners who come out and save a life today?
So if donors come in to donate blood, they get a $10 Megaplex card. If they're donating platelets, they get a $20 Amazon card. And what we just added is every day we're pulling a winner for a $100 Amazon. So your chances are pretty good at getting that $100 Amazon.
What is it about the holiday season that seemed to just mandate we need a little bit more community participation to help save lives? Why this time of year?
Yeah, you said it earlier. People are out skiing. They're out, doing winter activities right now. Ski on ski accidents, skiers, snowboard accidents land at University of Utah Hospital, and we want to have what we need on hand when they come into the hospital. So, and people are busy. They're on the road. They're traveling. So we definitely needed our blood donations dip in December.
For sure. All right, you and I have a couple things in common. One is my mother's name is Deb, so I will not forget your name. Number two is we both went to the University of Utah. So we have a strong alumni base around the community, and we are calling on our youths to come out and step up, yes?
Yes, I love listening to you talk about the Utah football team and all that's going on there. But I think what we really need is the University of Utah alumni to show up. 200,000 alums live within 50 miles of our voices right here. And so imagine if just a percentage of them came in to donate, and all of the blood goes to University Hospital and it goes to Huntsman. So it stays right here. So it's really sort of a bleed red campaign that we're doing right now. We really need the Utah Utes alum.
I love it. So give local, okay? Save local. 100% of the blood stays here at the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute. $10 Megaplex gift card, a $20 Amazon gift card if you donate platelets, and then you're entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Finally, you guys have the best snacks anywhere. When I saw this was on the schedule, I'm like, I'm going to get myself some snacks this afternoon. Just coming in, you can hang out and have some snacks and recover a little bit, yeah?
Perfectly curated for our audience. We have sweet stuff, salty stuff, everything you possibly need after a great donation.
Love it. Deb, we'll chat again, all right?
Thanks so much.
Come on by. ARUP Blood Services going to be here until 6 o'clock tonight. It's 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. There's also a spot in Research Park. It's 565 Comus Drive in Research Park. If you have any questions, you can dial 801-584-5272. Visit utahblood.org online. They're open 7 days a week. They will be closed on Christmas. But we need blood today. We're trying to save a life. So if you're looking for something to do to give back to the community, grab some coworkers, grab some friends. Come on by at 9786 South Sandy Parkway right here, ARUP Blood Services. All right, we'll launch into our guests coming up. Sam Bruckhouse will stop by, do a little college and pro football with Sam. Richard Smith live on site for an entire hour. Then it's Neil Smith, Andy Larson on a jam-packed Wednesday drive. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. trying to save some lives today. 9786 South, 500 West here in Sandy for donating blood. You get a $10 Megaplex gift card if you want to donate some blood. It's a $20 Amazon gift card. So we shouldn't have to incentivize you to save a life. We'll do that today. So come on by and say hi. Today it's 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy, Utah. We're bringing Richard Smith live on site. But football right out of the gate. Sam Bruckhouse, everybody from Super Sports, stops by on Wednesday. Sam, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing good.
All right, we'll take it. The credit goes to, well, it goes to me, but I like to give it to my producer because sometimes he gets sad. So we'll both take it, Sam, on this Wednesday afternoon. All right, I cannot believe that we are sitting here, week 15 now of pro football, and of course there's a lot of very interesting NFL storylines to get to. Let's start with your thoughts. Has Josh Allen wrapped up MVP? Can somebody else rip it from his hands?
It's a great question. He's certainly the leader in the clubhouse, and early season it looked like that was going to be the case. It's interesting that we're coming off of a Bills loss, and we're all like, man, who is playing better football than Josh Allen right now? He's fantastic. He would be my MVP pick. We put together a Pro Bowl list on SumerSports.com. You can go check it out. Just dropped. He was my number one vote for quarterback. I think he's pretty much got it wrapped up. I think the only person who can get in range is if Lamar has a couple of great games in the next couple of weeks.
All right, Sam, I'm going to be selfish here because I asked my NFL guests. First of all, I should have known better than to choose the New York Football Jets as a young child growing up in the Northeast, but I did. And, it's funny. I feel like preseason over the past few years, I'll bring on my NFL guys and I'll say, hey, as a Jet fan, why should I feel good? And they give me 20 reasons to feel good, and none of them ever really come to fruition. My question is simple. Have they married themselves to throw Rogan, to Aaron Rodgers, who I'm only glad he's still playing football so he doesn't start a podcast, or are they going to move off of him and try something else coming up next year?
Great question as well. I don't know if I have all the answers for this one. Frankly, I don't know if whoever the incoming Jet staff will have all the answers basically until draft time. You're in a situation where you have an offense that every single lever has been pulled to optimize it for Aaron Rodgers. Apparently, he's dealing with some injuries that we, as a public, don't really know about. I just don't see how it goes up from here. The problem being, though, is that this is not a great quarterback draft. I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to land kind of a bridge quarterback in one way or another, or perhaps a younger quarterback who hasn't gotten a lot of playing time but has a good pedigree, just in case things go wrong. But I can't really see the Jets going with a quarterback in this draft unless there are some major structural changes to that offense.
All right, we'll move off the Jets, but we'll stay in the space of organizations and franchises that should be better but are anemic, because my producer, Porter, who you know, is a Dallas Cowboys fan. And, there are plenty of teams that are still, more interesting to talk about with what we have in front of us. But the Cowboys, look, man, like Sam, I look at their roster. It's like they should be better. And obviously Dak gets hurt this year. It seems like it's just been so long since they really were legitimately contending for anything special. They have some paper tiger seasons where Dak puts up a bunch of numbers in the fourth quarter after they're down 30. And look, they've won regular season games, but the playoffs, they're going to miss it this year. And when they've been able to crack the playoffs, they haven't been able to advance very far. It's been a long, long time since the results for the Cowboys team live up to the brand of the Cowboys organization. What's the future look like in Dallas in your estimation?
I think they're locked into Dak and CD as the cornerstones of their offense. I think if there is a light in the dark for them going into next season, it's been the progression of their offensive line as this season has gone on. We've seen a couple, particularly on the interior of their offensive line, a lot of growth in our metrics over the course of the year. And, like the years that the Cowboys have been good, it's been because they have a dominant offensive line. They saw some key pieces, Tyler Biadasz, go out this year. Tyron Smith go out this year, and they were trying to fill that up. I think that was a major problem early season. I think they get that fixed here in the next year as some of their young players tend to develop. And I think their draft is going to be heavily on the defensive side of the ball this year. They just looked light. They couldn't stop the run. They were 14th percentile in expected points added per rush, which is our efficiency metric that we like to track to see how good these teams really are stopping teams from running the ball. I think they got to rebuild their front to pair with their all-pro level guy, Michael Parsons.
So we were talking about this, I guess yesterday, because today's Wednesday, the Monday night game, Cincinnati-Dallas, two really talented teams and two teams that probably should be better than they actually are based off of their talent on paper. And it just, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's one of my favorites to watch, though. And, I have these delusions in my mind of the Jets, like calling the Bengals and saying, what do you want for him? And I know the Bengals would never trade him. But what's fair to say about Cincinnati and their inability to surround a generational talent under center to get what they need to at least make the playoffs? I mean, 5-8 and 4-8 prior to that win, and Burrow's been awesome all year. They can't get enough around him to win football games.
To be fair, they've surrounded him with a lot of talent on that offense. We had 3 borderline Pro Bowlers, 1 certified Pro Bowler, certainly in Jamar Chase, on our list when we were all aggregating these votes. T. Higgins has been fantastic this year when he's been healthy, and Chase Brown has really come on as the year's gone on. The trouble is that secondary. It's been totally brutal, and we saw them just leave CeeDee Lamb, one of the best wide receivers in the league, wide open for a touchdown on Monday evening. I think that's going to be the absolute focus, is shoring up that defensive backfield and maybe adding a big piece in the middle. I think they can kind of still build around Trey Hendrickson and Logan Wilson on the defense. I think those are 2 good pieces to start, but they have a lot of work to do on the defense. And I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with that offense. There's all kinds of abilities to move guys or re-sign guys, but given how cash considerate they tend to be, it seems like one of those wide receivers is out the door.
All right, let's hone in on some teams that seem to generate interest in kind of this footprint here, and we'll start with the Denver Broncos. The Vegas Raiders are now the closest team in proximity, but for decades it was Denver. And I got to say, man, I mean, I was about to say we're in the Pac-12 footprint. I'm shedding a tear as I remember that we're not. But we were at one point, and so we all saw Bo Nix. I mean, hell, regardless of what footprint you were in, you probably saw Bo Nix at some point play college football. And it looks like the early returns for Sean Payton and Bo Nix have been positive. Do you think this is the start of something maybe potentially exciting in Denver?
I got to say, Sean Payton has done an excellent job on the offense, and he's done that by identifying one single thing that Bo Nix does really well, and really he's one of the better players in all of the league, and that is limiting negative plays and avoiding sacks. And he's built that whole offense around Bo being able to make quick, easy reads, and then being active in the screen game, using guys like Quinn Miners and Garrett Bowles, getting out there and blocking on the outside in the screen game. And then some of the wide receivers that have stepped up. Courtland Sutton's having a fantastic year. Melee, the big slot receiver, has also been playing very well. And I think this is really a Sean Payton great job this year. 2 thumbs up for him, because he's built it in a system where Bo Nix doesn't necessarily have to be the best quarterback in the league, but he can succeed at the things he's good at, and that leads to the team success in comparison, in complementary fashion to that great defense.
I'm not going to ask you about the Raiders. That's an insult. They don't deserve it, so we'll move off the Raiders. But we will move over to the Kansas City Chiefs, coached by BYU alum Andy Reid, and a lot of people around here, Chiefs fans. I've just been so impressed at the, I'll say, evolution of what Patrick Mahomes has become just as a thinker as opposed to a talent. And then defensively, they've kind of remade what their ethos is, which is just whatever you give us, we're going to take. We're going to figure it out and win in the end. Are they skating on a razor's edge that could come back to bite them, or do you still think this is a team that's the favorite to win the Super Bowl again?
So when you look at teams in the past that have done this kind of winning with very small margins, typically they're teams that don't have the talent that the Chiefs have. You think about the Vikings team several years ago where Justin Jefferson was still a young puppy. They had Kirk Cousins at quarterback. The defense had some guys that, frankly, are still there, like Harrison Smith, but there wasn't any major stars, and they were just able to put it together for a good year. They floundered in the playoffs. The issue is the Chiefs are winning games in a way that you have to do it in the playoffs. I've been tracking these games all year, and there's three things that happen at the end of every single close Chiefs game. There's a big stop that generally involves Trent McDuffie making a great play. The Chiefs get the ball back, and Patrick Mahomes is going to avoid a sack. He's going to run for 10 to 15 yards on the scramble for the first or second time of the game, and then he's going to be able to hook up with Kelsey to put them in field goal position or position to score. It happens every game. You can count on it. And frankly, I'm at the belief now that that's going to continue into the playoffs. I like them to make a Super Bowl run.
See, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's funny. I was home for Thanksgiving, and all my little nephews are now old enough to be football fans, and they're old enough to have watched the Chiefs win for a long time. So now they all hate them because that's what happens when you win at a high level. Football fans no longer cheer for you. Who's the AFC team? And I might be overthinking it. It might just be Buffalo. But who's the AFC team that keeps Andy Reid up at night?
I'm still stuck on the Ravens. I know they've had some off games of recent days, but Lamar Jackson is very difficult to beat. They have a pretty good offensive line that has developed a lot in the course of this year. And their defense has not been able to stop the pass really well, but they've been able to stop the run really well. And when you look at some of the teams in the AFC, particularly the Chiefs, if you can keep them from being successful on a play-by-play basis in the run game, that kind of sets them back. You can kind of pin your ears back and focus a little bit more on the Patrick Mahomes of the world. And the Bills have also sneakily had a very effective run game. I looked at the metrics a couple weeks ago, and all three of their featured running backs were well above average in our metrics. I think if the Baltimore Ravens can shore up their defensive backfield here in the next couple of weeks, maintain that great rushing defense, and maintain the offense that they've been having, I think they're really one to beat in the AFC as well.
Since you're on the Ravens, and I agree with you, I love them, and we've got a lot of local ties, a lot of Utes who are on that roster, and there's so much to love about Lamar. I mean, he's just one of those guys that's worth the price of admission, box office, as the kids would say. But I've never asked you this because you know the deal. Playoffs roll around. They don't win the Super Bowl. Talking heads are like, Lamar can't get it done during the playoffs. And you look at his playoff numbers, and they dip a bit, but, you know, he's still doing great things in the postseason. And certainly football, in my estimation, I've always said, is the ultimate team sport, more so than any other team sport, even though other team sports need everybody to kind of do their share. In football, everyone's got to step up. And, yes, you can have a great guy under center that can make up for certain gaps here or there. But what's the Sam Bruckhouse take on what's fair to say about Lamar come playoff time?
In a similar lane to Patrick Mahomes, I think there's, again, three things that win in the playoffs. And I think Lamar can do all three of those things. And I think he's shown that he can do those at an extremely high level, even in excess of what he's done over the course of, you know, a 2 MVP winning career this year. And I think there's one key addition. I think he's always been able to avoid sacks, and I think he's always been able to scramble and get those gotta-have-it third and fourth downs. But he's never had a guy that he could rely on to take some pressure off of him, and Derrick Henry just certainly is that guy. I think as we get into the playoffs and the games get a little bit tighter, I think Derrick Henry will be the difference on second and third down, breaking off some big runs and alleviating the pressure off of Lamar a little bit.
All right, let's move over now to the NFC. You know, the numbers, the net, and everything else indicates that Detroit is the team to beat. So let's just start as far as the favorite at this point to come out of the NFC, and that would be Detroit. Do you think they are at the top of the mountain? Everyone else looking up at the Lions right now.
Not only do I think they're at the top of the mountain in the NFC, I think they're at the top of the mountain for the entire league. I think this is one of the best, most cohesive teams we've seen in many, many years. And their ability to overcome the injuries on defense really gives me a lot of confidence. I think that is their one gap. If the injuries just become too much, I don't frankly know what they can do. I think they had like 13 guys on IR that had started some games this year. But their key is Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. at the safety position. As long as those guys are in the defensive backfield and the offense is hitting the way it's hit for years now at this standpoint, I really, truly believe in the Detroit Lions.
Now, the other teams in the mix, you probably have to start with Philly, I would imagine, right? 11-2. I don't know what to make of the locker room drama with players potentially, not being on the same page. But I've always been a big Jalen guy. I still am. And you reference what Derrick Henry has done for Baltimore. Well, Saquon certainly has done that for Philly and more. If there's a team that can throw punches with the Lions, do you think it's the Eagles, or would you go in a different direction?
I go in a different direction. I just cannot. I struggle to believe in teams that can't throw the ball, and they've struggled all year to the point that Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, two guys that the league believes are better wide receivers in this league, are starting to get a little bit frustrated. And it's really upsetting to see that, but that's the main reason why I don't believe in them. I think their defense is great. I think their offensive line is great. Saquon obviously has been fantastic, but I frankly think the NFC title lies in the NFC North, and I like the Packers and I like the Vikings even more than the Packers. I think they're two very similar teams to the Lions. They have defenses that calls havoc plays, take the ball away, and they have offenses that like to run the ball and then like to get the ball to their key wide receivers. Obviously, Minnesota has Justin Jefferson. He's almost always the first read, and he's still able to get open. I like the progression I've seen from Sam Darnold. I don't know if I totally believe in him, but who I do believe in is Kevin O'Connell, and that's why I think the Vikings really are the one in the mix to challenge the Detroit Lions.
Since you brought up the Packers, Jordan Love played his college ball around these parts up at Utah State. Friend of the show, had him on a number of times, and then they become rich and famous and they lose your cell phone. I'm not sad about it, but I wonder what you make of just kind of this path that Jordan has been on. And then he gets the chance after they move on from Aaron Rodgers, and it doesn't look great initially. And then I don't know what you saw, Sam. Something clicked with him like 4 or 5 games in, and he really hasn't looked back since. He's not perfect. Nobody is. But what have you made of Jordan's growth in Green Bay?
I think you can get everything you want to know out of one insight from last week's Thursday night football game, and that is the fact that Dan Campbell, under no circumstances, wanted to give the ball back to Jordan Love. This is a guy who teams around the league fear. He's able to be creative when he plays. He's able to cause big plays, and he's working underneath a quarterback whisperer in Matt LaFleur. I really love his progression, and that's why, frankly, I think as we move more into the playoffs, they're going to be a really, really difficult team to beat, given the progression of some of those wide receivers and the addition of Josh Jacobs as well.
All right, Sam, before I set you loose, give us some insight on what appears to be a very massive project you guys have completed over at Sumer Sports, this Pro Bowl project, this exciting thing you did. There was a voting process. You guys debated it back and forth. This must have taken a lot of time and a lot of work. Illuminate us on this and tell us where we can go find it.
Yeah, so if you go try to vote for the Pro Bowl, you'll be interested to find you have to vote for 6 people per position. So we broke it all the way down to the fullbacks, the tight ends, the left guards, 6 deep across multiple people, argued about it, hashed it out. You can go find it on SumerSports.com. A lot of mine got in. My favorite pick was Jaden Daniels as the NFC starter. Luckily, that got in with some support from some other folks on the dais from Sumer Sports. But go check it out, SumerSports.com. It's an awesome list, and it does a great job of packaging up what this season has been.
All right, Sam, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the weekend ahead. Love to have you back on soon, okay?
Yep, thank y'all as always.
All right, Sam Bruckhouse, Sumer Sports, talking a little NFL. Before we catch a break, I want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action. Well, watching your favorite sports, you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas. I did not make that up. Porter, don't send that. All right, so it's very easy. Sign up today. Use the promo code ESPN700. They don't need air checks on this one. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game all season long. All right, we're live today out and about at ARUP Blood Services. Come on by and say hi at 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Richard Smith is in the house for an entire hour. If you've ever wanted to meet the legend himself, Richard Smith, come on by. But my friend Deb Jordan stops by once again. Deb, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much.
I appreciate you being here. So, first of all, as I said last time you hopped on, we should not need to incentivize people to do good things, but we're not above that or below that. We're doing that today. So what are you giving our listeners to come donate blood?
So we're giving our whole blood listeners a $10 Megaplex card. All these great movies are out right now. And our platelet donors are getting $20 Amazon cards. That helps you fill your stockings or tuck it in your grandkids' stocking. And then we also have a drawing, which is really new. For each day in December, we're pulling one of the donors as a winner and giving them a $100 Amazon, trying to help them fill their stockings as well.
There you go. So if you need a little cash this holiday season, if you want to fill the stockings, come on out, donate blood, it's platelets, correct?
Correct.
Donate platelets and then enter to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Have you seen Wicked?
I haven't yet. I'm waiting to go with my niece.
Okay. I haven't seen it either, but I've heard it's great. So if you guys want to go see a movie, we'll hook you up. Deb, what is it about this time of year? Because I've been coming out to ARUP during the holiday seasons for like 15 years, back when our guy Lance was doing it.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was this time of year where you guys really needed the push. Why is that?
I think people are really busy. They're focused. They're looking at their budgets. They're looking at their time and picking up people at the airport. And we really just want them to stop by here. We're the only donor center in Utah that takes walk-ins. So we're open 7 days a week. And I think it's just people got out of the habit a little bit maybe during COVID, and we want them to come back and walk in and donate with us.
Now, what should always be underscored is 100% of the blood donated stays in Utah, and you're the sole provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute, which means we need a lot of blood.
We
right?
do.
I mean, if for those two hospitals this time of year, and you're the sole provider, we really need a lot of blood, so we're calling on our fellow Ute alum.
Yeah, and Huntsman, think about the cancer patients who were there for replacement products. They're there because the chemo has just eradicated all of their platelets. They're not feeling great. They need something from us. So this is a great gift to give during the holiday season.
So come on by and say hi. The location is 9786 South Sandy Parkway. Patients need your help this holiday season. Again, ARUP, sole blood provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute. And donations only take 30 minutes. So, Deb, before I set you loose, what is the process? When people walk in the front door, what can they expect?
Well, so we're having this great experience. You come in and you meet our fabulous receptionist. You fill out your health history questionnaire, which you can now do online at home if you want to save some time. You do a little mini physical when you meet with our phlebotomist. It just takes a few minutes, and then you get to donate blood, and that probably takes about 7 minutes. So in all, it's about 35 minutes.
Great, and very seamless, and you have great snacks, obviously, as we've talked about, yeah?
Yes, and it can save 3 lives. The product gets divided into 3 parts. So 3 different patients can get those products, and so really your 35 minutes is saving 3 people.
Love it. Deb, thanks for
You're
stopping by,
welcome.
okay?
Thanks.
ARUP Blood Services, that's where we're at today. It's 9786 South Sandy Parkway. So as Deb referenced, just 30 minutes, 35 minutes out of your day, you'll save 3 different lives. So 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. If you're looking for something to do to give back to the community this holiday season, this is a great place to do it at ARUP Blood Services. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Richard Smith live on site coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, we are live today at ARUP Blood Services. It's 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Let me repeat that, as the edge was a little loud coming in there.
That's my guy. Let's go.
9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Give local, save local. It's the sole blood provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute, which means we need blood. If you're looking for ways to give back this holiday season, roll up. Takes about 30, 35 minutes of your time. We'll hook you up with a Megaplex gift card. Amazon gift cards on the table as well. And you can say hello to the legend himself, Richard Smith, on a Wednesday. Smitty, happy Wednesday, man.
Same to you, Spence. This is, by the way, this is a great spot for you to do your show whenever you get the opportunity to come out here to ARUP. These guys do such a great job in helping the University of Utah and the hospital and getting the blood and the donations they need, to help people this time of year. So it's fantastic. I always love doing stuff with you in these kinds of settings where people are trying to help other people. It's just terrific.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you being out here. It's nice of you to come out in this direction. So we've got you for an hour. We'll save the jazz stuff for a little bit later, because I like to get your perspective on some of the local things that are happening. And since you and I last spoke, the head coach of the University of Utah said, not yet, not like this, and Coach Witt is back for year 21.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I've been surprised at what I perceive to be a reaction that I wasn't anticipating. And I want to be very clear here. I can't say 40% of the community or 20, whatever it is. But based off of some emails I've received, some phone calls, some text messages, and some of the reaction, I feel like he's still considered to be one of the best coaches in all of college football, and certainly the best coach that this university has ever had. And I keep coming back to this line from Batman: you either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain.
Yeah. Well,
what's your take on some people that think it might be time to the succession plan to take place?
Well, first of all, my reaction is, who are these people? It's Bobby in his basement bedroom of his parents' home, like putting stuff online or whatever. I mean, to me, guys like Kyle Whittingham, who have done what they've done, who've shown you what they know what they're doing. And to me, it's insulting that it's even, any kind of a discussion topic among, people in general, because someone who's shown what they can do and they have a bad year for whatever all the reasons are that everybody knows, all of a sudden everybody wants to jump ship, and but we live in, Spence, in this what have you done for me lately world, right? And everybody wants everything yesterday, and so as soon as it's not good, they all want to throw everything in the trash can and start over again. It's really, to me, it's really insulting for Coach Whittingham and for his staff, to have that kind of reaction after all they've done and shown what they mean to college football in the Western United States, in this region. It's he individually has done enough that he should be allowed to do it however he wants to do it. Like, he's gotten from me, he's gotten that card that says, you got it. You just do whatever you want. You want to stay another 5 years? You want to leave tomorrow? You want to have some other guy who's going to be your, whatever it is, you've earned that right based on what your track record has been. And this thing about reacting to a bad season because of all the things we know happened is just ludicrous to me.
Let me play devil's advocate for a moment here, while also making my personal opinion clear, as I did the Monday after the announcement. Kyle wants to come back. Kyle's coming back. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when 6 wins, a bowl game, and maybe beat BYU was the pinnacle for Utah football. They were in the Rose Bowl 2 years ago.
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is a new world in collegiate athletics, as you and I have discussed. But let me pose this scenario to you, and let's kind of process it through to see if there's anything there. Because what's happened now in the landscape of college football, and it's not just in Utah, because whenever you hear a college football speak during the offseason, what is he talking about? NIL, investment from the community, we need your help. So there are powerful Ute alumni, booster, season ticket holder donors that are now being asked to do more economically and financially for the athletic department than they've ever been asked to do before. And some of them are writing 7-figure checks. Okay? I know that to be true. Mm-hmm. Therefore, my guess would be their voices are going to be a little bit more loud as it pertains to what they want their program to look like if you're asking us to write these checks. If there are those people, not Bob in his basement,
Yep.
powerful donors, people that are backing this program financially, that call Taylor Randall and call Mark Harlan and say it's time, what do you do with that?
Well, those are the guys, Spence, who are also at every reception, every major announcement of whatever, hobnobbing. We're using this live example, right, of with Kyle Whittingham, rubbing shoulders with him, hanging out. Yeah, I like this new quarterback. Yeah, this is going to be great, whatever. And they want to be a buddy in the program because they feel like they've bought their way in or they've earned their way in some other regard. And then as soon as, there's a ripple in the water, they start running for the hills. I mean, that's, I'm not sure those are the people that you want involved in your program. You're either in with the group or you're not. That's how I see it.
You're either all in or in the way.
No,
says.
that's right. Yeah. And so, and I don't know if there's any of those people necessarily, involved at this point in time with the University of Utah. I know exactly what you're saying. There are a lot of those kind of people who are what we always reference as heavy hitters, right? And they have a voice in the room, okay? But there's some point, there's some line in the sand where, you have some guy who's been there for a little while, and he's been okay, had some success, some things didn't quite go right, whatever. Okay, we're questioning what this is long term. But when you're talking about a Kyle Whittingham, you're talking about a Greg Popovich, you're talking about a Jerry Sloan, whoever it is who has shown you what they can do when they have the players, when everything's lined up and they're ready to go toe-to-toe with their opposition night in, night out. If those guys still want to, be doing it and they've got it, they know how to figure it out, they'll, Kyle Whittingham, yeah, it's a new landscape in NIL and all that and transfer portal stuff. But Kyle, I'm sure, has gotten guys on his staff who know how to navigate that stuff, who know how to, what they need to do to be able to keep that train moving forward. I know, not to transition off it for a second, but with Kevin Young, the new basketball coach at BYU, has brought in a brand new staff there and has lined up all these guys who work in their office, dealing with all this stuff. And obviously we've seen a big apple fall off the tree yesterday with the announcement of the Debanza kid committing to come to BYU. But you surround yourself with people in the college landscape now, with people who know that, who know the grassroots, who know what it takes and what you have to be able to do. And what I'm afraid of is that it's just starting to get away from everybody in terms of what the numbers are and what's happening now in college athletics across the board to get kids to commit to come to your university and play with you. And I know Kyle's got guys around him who are figuring that out, who know what needs to be done, and they'll reset and they'll come back strong next year. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
All right, you referenced it. Okay, we'll move off the Coach Witt stuff, and we're going to continue to kind of talk about some of the things that are causing ripples throughout the community. But we now know, based off of some good reporting of college basketball writers, that A.J. Debanza signed his letter of intent November 19th or 20th. Of course, as all young athletes do, there had to be a dog and pony show. He had to jump off a helicopter with his Red Bull hat on to sit next to Stephen A. Smith with his father to inform the world that he has decided to attend Brigham Young University. I always get a kick out of, because after the announcement, I listened to 3 or 4 random college basketball podcasts, And I always get a kick out of listening in real time when national people learn about what BYU is all about. And so, like, for instance, this morning I was listening to a college basketball podcast where they learned in real time what BYU's honor code is. And they learned in real time what happened with Brandon Davies and why Jimmer Fredette never went to a Final Four, and how the Brandon Davies situation Brandon was their second best player, and he gets kicked off the team for allegedly having premarital sex. I think they went to the Sweet 16, but Fredette was so next level that year, they probably could have gone to an Elite Eight, maybe a Final Four. We'll never know. And so the reaction of the national media that cover college basketball and know who AJ is has been pretty funny, because they're stunned that AJ has picked Brigham Young. Now, he could have gone anywhere. His final schools were Carolina, Kansas, Bama, and BYU. The reports are he really wanted Bama, but they couldn't meet his financial ask. And Carolina and Kansas kind of rely on their blue blood nature, so they say, no, this is the deal. If you want to play for us, you're going to make this amount. Obviously, there's a Ryan Smith angle here. There's a Danny Ainge angle here. The reports are he has been paid between $5 and $7 million to play college basketball at BYU for 5 months, because he and his father both said on First Take, we're one and done. No. Now, I will say, and you're going to roll your eyes, and I love your reaction to this. Over the past 24 hours, I've read more about this kid than I have anybody. This year, it's Cooper Flagg. 2027, it's a kid named Tyrone Stokes. And 2026, it's A.J. DeBanza. Right. There's a CBS poll. They polled NBA scouts. Of those three players, Cooper Flagg, Tyrone Stokes, A.J. DeBanza, who would you take if they were in the same draft? It was overwhelmingly in favor of A.J.
Yeah, right.
And from what I've seen, Smitty, I mean, you know the deal. If you're at a high school game, or even if you're at a college game, you're watching prospects. The prospects that are ranked between like 30 and like 120, sometimes it's hard to tell like exactly what's different about then the guys that pop. You see like, oh, okay, and he appears to have everything you want. There's a marathon between this day and the day he enters the NBA, but from a Brigham Young, Kevin Young standpoint, what could yesterday mean for the program they're trying to build?
Well, first and foremost, Spence, what it does, it puts BYU right in the forefront of the national media and everybody else who follows college basketball to say, oh, those guys are in the mix now.
Well, what's going on?
Yeah, because you have a DeBanza or you have Cooper Flagg last year, whoever, all these guys, Ace Bailey at Rutgers, and all of a sudden you're used to hearing those kinds of names with the same group of schools all the time: Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, sometimes UCLA. UConn. Those are the schools where all the guys gravitate to, and then they sift it out through there who is going to be a better fit for me, and however they're judging that. But now all of a sudden, BYU is one of those guys, because everybody's going, well, wait a minute, this isn't an LDS kid, from Orem, Utah, who decided to go here. Or like they've had in the past, like a Greg Kite back in the 80s who came from Houston, Texas, or a Danny Ainge in the late 70s who came from Eugene, Oregon. This is a kid from Boston, Massachusetts.
Sean Bradley, who played here.
Sean Bradley was down the street.
Yep.
But this isn't an LDS kid, and he's not a local kid. He's you probably 6 months ago could have challenged him with a map of the United States to say, okay, you got three chances to tell me where a BYU is located and point to it on a map, right? But they end up getting him to come from Boston to actually he's been now his third high school, and he's down at the Utah Prep in Hurricane doing his senior year of high school and getting ready for BYU. So BYU is showing that they're a major player with those other guys now, and the only thing you can really equate it to are the two things that have happened in the last 12 months, and that is that the change in the coaching situation when Mark Pope left for Kentucky, and BYU brought in Kevin Young, who has an NBA background and has told BYU in certain regards that if you want to hire me, The only way I know how to do it is to set up an NBA-type program. And if we're going to do that, that we have to be able to compete now in the Big 12 with Kansas, with Baylor, with Texas Tech, with Kansas State, Arizona now in the Big 12.
Houston.
This is a big-time men's basketball conference. And so if you want us to be one of those guys, we have to be able to compete on the same level they do to go after kids. Kids know about Kansas, right? They know about Houston, Baylor, who won the national championship several years ago. They know something about BYU, but not a lot. If you want to be in the same breath with those guys, you got to make these kind of changes, and that's the way Kevin Young is running the program now, and also with the financial backing of whether it's Ryan Smith or whoever it is that's lining up behind to take part in that from the financial NIL standpoint. But they've got the backing, apparently, to do that. And so if that's the deal, then what it does, Spence, it opens up that big door that now the one main kid has decided he's going there. So now the other main kids, whoever they are, coming down the pipe the next, year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, they're going to say, well, I'm one of the top-rated kids, and I'm 16 years old, and I'm a high school sophomore, and I got my list as, I'm already looking at Duke and Kansas and North Carolina and BYU. And now they put BYU in with that group, because they've seen that that's a school that is going to play with the big boys and can go. Now, what do they have to do? Now they have to bring it on the court. Now they have to be able to produce on the court to be able to win. So that brings added pressure to the program in terms of having some level of success and be able to go toe-to-toe with those guys. Gonzaga has done it for years, from a mid-major profile in the Northwest, in the West Coast Conference, a small school conference. But Gonzaga has been able to also build it up, but then make that transition to the way it's being run now, because they have donors, they have people who are helping to say, yeah, we want to stay up with those guys. And Gonzaga is the one school to me that I think, I love what they do. I love how they do it. But they are the school that in November and December, they say, we play anybody, anywhere, let's go. And it's not this like, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina. Those guys, they'll play you, but they'll play you 3 times at their place and 1 time at a neutral place, or whatever. Mm-hmm. They always feel like we have the leverage. We don't have to. But Gonzaga says, hey, we'll go wherever. You want us to go to the Bahamas? You want us to go to UConn? They're going to New York this week to play UConn. They're going, they played in Seattle the other day. Was a return game from Kentucky because they played at Kentucky last. All this stuff, they've built that up where they play everybody anywhere before their conference season. BYU, I think, is heading in that direction where they're going to say, hey, we want to play everybody because this is what we do. And that's how we attract the good players, because the good players want to play in big games. They want to play against the other guys, And if you're not worried about your preseason conference schedule and you're not worried as a coach about, well, we have to figure out how to get to be 11-2 before we go into conference, because that shows everybody that I'm a good coach and that I'm gonna, I'm gonna be able to hold on to my job for next year or whatever. That's the players want to play in the big games whenever they can, and they want to play against the other guys, and so that's what BYU is setting themselves up to do. And they're off to a running start, obviously, with the recruits they've got this year, and Deming and Catchings, and now this kid coming from Boston in a year.
So there's a chance, whether it's intentional because leadership is seen around corners, or there's some serendipity involved, that BYU is a little bit ahead of the curve as far as how they've been able to build their basketball infrastructure. And here's why. On the football side of things, you hear all the time, we have to start building out our infrastructure the same way the NFL does. So now we have general managers in college football, and there are other staff additions that sound very much like an NFL press release. Kevin has Will Voigt, who you know, who's the head coach of teams internationally as well as the G League. Tim Fanning, overtime elite. His strength and conditioning staff are all former NBA people. His nutritionist, she came directly from pro basketball.
From the Suns.
There's no other staff in college basketball built like this, Smitty.
Yes.
There really is not. And the main reason why is that it's really rare for people who have tasted NBA charter food to decide that they want to go take a rental car to Des Moines, Iowa to recruit a prospect, right?
There you go.
So, look, before we break, the question I have for you is this sustainable to the point where we're seeing the beginning stages of Kevin and Brigham Young building a college basketball powerhouse, or is it Ben Simmons to LSU? Is it DeJuan Wagner to Memphis? We've seen this before.
Yep.
We've seen big-time top prospects take the path less traveled by because the uncle's the assistant coach or whatever it is, and it's just a moment in time. Mm-hmm. Does this feel like to you it's the start of something pretty sustainable down in Provo?
Well, I think what will happen, Spence, is as we mentioned a minute ago, you can get all this stuff set up. You can line it all up. You can get all the best people around you and to help get the program up and going the way you want and going in that direction. You can have the support behind you in terms of the finances, the resources you make available. But at the end of the day, in March, you have to be whatever it's going to be. You have to be 27-3 and, making a deep run in the NCAA tournament. If you get the top players and your team is waddling around 18-14 during the year or whatever like that, then people are going to start questioning whether they can actually do it on the floor. And that's always the final verdict is how well do you play and what do the wins and losses stack up to be. If he brings in the right guys and they're coaching them up and they get all this support and they don't play as well as is expected, then there's going to be a lot of raised eyebrows. But if they start running it like Gonzaga has for years, right, and every year they're going to be in the mix for the conference championship, and they're going to be 25-5, or they're going to have a winning record and they're going to get on runs in the NCAA tournament. That's what builds up that momentum and sustains it. But that's really what the end game is. Do all this other stuff, which is a lot of noise, but at the end, we got to come out and produce, and we got to take care of business.
Yeah, got to go to work. Kevin's got a coach now. I mean, John Calipari did win a national championship, but when you look at the list of players he's had, people wonder if he's a coach or a car salesman. I hope that doesn't sound harsh. All right, we'll catch a break. Before we do, Deb Jordan stops by out here at ARUP Blood Services. Deb, how are you?
I'm great. It's so great to listen to this great conversation.
He's a wealth of knowledge.
Wow,
I just sit back,
amazing.
ask the questions, and listen. It's a lot of fun. All right, we're asking for blood donations today out here at ARUP Blood Services at 9786 South Sandy Parkway. As I ask you to do to start every segment, we are incentivizing you to do good. What are we doing for our listeners today?
Yeah, first of all, that feeling of euphoria is also a sense of doing good. But for us, we're giving out $10 Megaplex gift cards to our blood donors and $20 Amazon cards to our platelet donors. And we have this great drawing every day for $100 Amazon. We figure we can help you buy some Christmas presents or put that turkey on the table for you, too.
So I'm reading this on the copy points. The hospitals you guys serve need at least 75 donors per day to meet needs.
We do.
What is it about this time of year?
I think it's every day of the year. The hospital's growing to meet the growing population. Huntsman is growing to meet the demands of cancer patients. They also serve the greater West region, so they're seeing patients from outside of Utah, so they're really busy. But that includes blood drives, so people can donate out in the community at one of our blood drives as well.
All right, we were talking last segment about the Huntsman Cancer Institute, and you do not know this. Smitty does. Some of my listeners do. I am a alumni of the Huntsman Cancer Institute, and I needed blood when I was there. And it's funny, you don't really consider like, hey, I wonder where this blood came from. You're just like, hey, I kind of need this right now. So what specifically about the Huntsman Cancer Institute is so kind of vital for our listeners to come donate to make sure we're helping them out?
I didn't know that about you. I also am a Huntsman alumni.
Okay,
I haven't hit my 5 years yet, so I'm still in that period. Chemotherapy, some chemotherapy treatments just eradicate, they just destroy platelets. And so you're just sort of bleeding on the inside. And so we want to make sure that the chemo patients, the cancer patients, that the patients who have sickle cell can have that blood and platelets available to them. Platelets only last 5 days, so we always need donors to come in. You can donate every 2 weeks. But being a Huntsman alum is not something that you really want to be in that same club. But there's a lot of people here in the Salt Lake Valley, and we need to help them.
It's not a club you want to be in, but when you are in it and you come out the other side, there's a perspective that you can't teach.
Yeah, I didn't need a transfusion when I was there. I was really lucky when I was being treated there. But, you just feel awful. Your life is just spiraling out.
Yep.
And so the fact that a family is going through that, or a dad or a mom or a grandma is going through that, we want to make sure that they're not worried about anything else when they're there as well. Like, the blood is there, the plate's there, everything is there that they need to get treated.
For sure. All right, before I set you loose, let's just tell people about the process they'll go through when they come out here to donate.
So it's pretty easy. You come in and you greet with our receptionist, and you have a little health history questionnaire that kind of goes through all your medications and what your body is going through at the moment. We want you to be healthy. You get a little mini health screening with our phlebotomist. And then the donation process for blood only takes about 30 minutes total. So for 30 minutes, you can really save 3 people's lives.
And then you come out and hang out in the waiting room and eat the best snacks around. You can ask Smitty basketball question. You come hang out with us, right?
It's pretty great. You guys should come down today. We're open till 7 tonight. We're open 7 days a week. We're going to be closed on Christmas. So that means we need a few more donors the day before and a few more donors the day after. But that allows our staff to have the day off as well. But the hospital doesn't stop.
Deb, thanks for your work.
You're
Thanks for
so
stopping
welcome.
by, okay? Here's the address, 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Very easy to find, but I would put it in your GPS. Follow that out. We've got a station van out front, 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. All the blood stays in Utah. They are the sole provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute. So please come out, get a Megaplex gift card. Amazon gift cards on the table as well out here at ARUP Blood Services on a Wednesday. All right, more with Smitty coming up next right here on ESPN 700. All right, live today, ARUP Blood Services. Come on by and say hello. Richard Smith is live on site, 97, 86 South, 500 West in Sandy. Very easy to find. The phone number is 801-584-5272. You can visit utahblood.org for more information if you have any questions. Open 7 days a week. They will be closed on Christmas. So if you're looking for something to do this holiday season, come on by and do some good. Donate some blood. Are you a fan of the holidays? You get Christmas out, you decorate the tree, you get ready for the. Or you're not into it?
Well, no, we do it all. But my wife Linda does all that stuff. She gets all the house. Where I live in a scenario, Spence, where I can try and help with something. I'll put something on a shelf, and then she'll come over 5 minutes later and go, it goes over here. It does. It's over on this side, not that side.
Well, that's probably good.
But I joke about that, of course. But I mentioned that to a friend of mine just recently about that, and she's asked me about Christmas decorating. I said, well, my wife does it all, but I seem to not put stuff in the right place. And she says, oh yeah, I'm on to that. Guys do that on purpose so that the wife or the women in the house will go, hey, why don't you go downstairs and watch the football game, and I'll take care of the decorating.
Okay.
And you guys got that all figured out. I go, really? She goes, oh yeah, I'm on to you guys.
No, that's not true. Okay, and I don't want to wade into the area of misogynistic takes, but when I was home for Thanksgiving, I decided I was going to clean the kitchen and I was going to do the dishes, and my dear mother, bless her heart, comes downstairs and changes I put everything in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I guess what's the answer? You try to help out a little bit, but when it comes to the final decision, you just take a step back and say, "Do your thing."
Yeah. Well, in our household anyway, Spence, for anything that we do, it's an equal opportunity place. I have one vote, and my wife has 2 votes, and so that's. That's how it runs. That's a democratic society.
Maybe that's how you stay married. You're better at it than I certainly have proven to be. All right, Richard Smith live on site. Real quick, breaking news. Bill Belichick is accepting the North Carolina coaching job.
Yeah, hey, look, everybody has to do their own thing. Bill Belichick, again, we talked about Kyle Whittingham in the last segment. Belichick has done so much to prove who he is as a coach and at the NFL. In the pro ranks, he's got to be some kind of, lifer who's just itching to get back in the film room and on the practice field and all that kind of stuff to go back to college, especially with all this NIL transfer portal stuff. He's, why would you, if you're someone who's in his position, go back and do that? It's got to be just because he has such an itch to do that kind of work and to get into it and especially at the college level where you're doing that recruiting and all that stuff. But, yeah, that's a kind of a surprise to me.
Are coaches just lunatics? I mean, can they not walk away once they – because it seems like lifers, right? Some of them do transition into media, and some of them do transition into other things. But, I mean, Bill Belichick's been a football coach for 50 years. Is it just kind of at some point what you know?
Yeah. Well, that's some guys have to have it in their blood, and they're just they just can't get away from it. Whether it's Jay Wright, at Villanova, who did step away while he was right in the middle of his career and really doing well at Villanova, whether it was Mike Krzyzewski, who was near the end of it, in terms of his age and stuff, but he just decided that now was the right time to step back. And Bill Belichick, it didn't go, I think, the way that he wanted it to at the end with New England, and has been out for a couple of years, and looks like he just has to be around the game, and maybe this is an opportunity where he gets to be able to do it the way he wants to do it, and at a place that's a high-profile school. So.
Well, and maybe it's an avenue back to pro football. I don't know. Interesting news, though, is Bill Belichick has accepted the job at North Carolina to coach their football team. All right, last segment discussing some of the local stuff with A.J. DeBanza, high-speed ahead to Brigham Young, and Coach Witt back on the sidelines when it comes to coaching the Utes for the 21st season coming up. I want to ask you one more question in this space, and then we'll do some jazz, I guess. Transfer portal. NIL. As of this morning, I haven't checked the up-to-date numbers this afternoon, we're approaching 2,000 football players in the transfer portal. We talked about, the players that Utah is losing, and they're going to lose more. That's just the deal. Initially, I pushed back on the premise that this was becoming pro sports, but now it just is. And it seems like every single issue that drives fans crazy, every single issue that drives administrators and coaches crazy really could be solved by allowing the players to unionize and collectively bargain with the governing body that runs. And I'm saying football specifically, okay? And yes, I know that the ancillary issues are plentiful. And whenever you hear pushback on the pro model, it comes from university presidents who do not want these young people to be employees of their institution. And I understand that. But I'm a sports talk radio host, so we're going to stick with the football side of things. What's the downside, Smitty, at this point? Because at least if you allow the players to unionize, collectively bargain, and it would be a mess, it would take a long time, at the very least, they will sign contracts to stick around for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And look, each contract, just like in the pros, would be different. Your opt-out is this if you don't play this amount of games. If you're not happy after a year, maybe it's a one-and-done thing where you can leave the next season. But if you're the institution, you would have the ability to sign a player for maybe 3 years, and then he's allowed to go pro or whatever. Do you see any downside at this point to the model that the pros use that college is clearly leaning into anyway?
No, well, it seems like it has to go in that direction, because right now, when you're talking about in professional sports, you negotiate with someone, whether they're a draft pick that's coming in or a free agent that you're trying to acquire. You have a written agreement that says that they're going to perform for you services that you will in turn pay them for X amount of period of time. In college now, you don't have anything like that that's binding. So you can have a guy coming into your program and he's all set to go, and something goes wrong at a practice, or a friend of his at another school says, "Oh, we're really killing it in practice. We're going to be a good team this year. Too bad you didn't come play with us," whatever. And the kid goes, "Oh, maybe I should come play with you guys." I mean, you can do that at this point in time in college athletics. So they have to have something that they're going to be able to put their teeth into that allows the institutions to have some modicum of control in terms of how they're running their programs with respect to the student athlete, because otherwise it's just this wild west that's a revolving door, and everybody's coming in and out, and you don't know who's on what team, and it really references the old Seinfeld routine that he used to do about growing up a Mets fan and all his guys, and he rooted for Tommy Agee and Cleon Jones and all these guys when he was growing up, and they were his guys, and now he says, "I'm still a Mets fan, but I don't know who's playing for the Mets because the guys changed so much and everything." So really, I'm not rooting for the players. Really, what I find I'm doing is I'm just rooting for laundry.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever's wearing a Mets jersey, that's who I'm rooting for, but I don't even know who the guy is. And so, that's what it's gotten to in terms of college athletics. The teams are switching around. The players are switching in and out every year. We don't have a Jimmer Fredette for 4 years to root for and grow up with and see him get better.
Keith Van Horn.
And all that kind and all that kind of stuff. So that's what's disturbing about college athletics right now in that regard. And then whatever is happening with the revenue producing sports, right, which is always said to be football and men's basketball, right? Some schools maybe women's basketball somewhat. Some schools maybe like the University of Utah with women's gymnastics, But again, why is that that way up there, Spence? Because they've had a winning program that's been sustained for so many years, and people have gotten used to that, and they want to be part of that winning, positive environment. And what's going to happen with all of the other ancillary sports? The tennis team and the track and field team and the baseball team and whoever it is that aren't revenue producing sports. How are they going to be affected by all of this stuff is really going to be very interesting in the coming years.
All right, got about 10 minutes-ish left with Smitty, so we will talk some Jazz.
Okay, all right. That was good. That was good, Spence. The pregnant pause there.
Look, I'm going to say this, and you're going to roll your eyes at me, but John Collins is a 50, 40, 90 guy this year.
That's right. No.
And he's 27 years old.
Yep.
And I feel like because Walker, Keontae, Taylor, Bryce, I feel like because there's so many 19, 20, 21-year-old players on the roster, and they're so far from being even average, we talk about John like he's 40.
Yep.
Is there an area in your mind, a space that exists that John might be a player that is playing better under Will than he ever did with any coach he's had before, and maybe he's part of like this thing? I don't know, man. I'm trying to make it interesting, Smitty.
No, but it's a great point because when they made the trade for John Collins, he was really more like their version of a free agent signing, right? They couldn't get anybody. Atlanta almost seemed like they wanted to trade him, from the moment they re-signed him, and it seemed like it was a move that they had made at that time. Simply because they didn't want to lose him for nothing. So they signed him at that time to a contract that a lot of people thought was maybe too much, in the $25 million range a year for what he did for the team. They were willing to trade him. Eventually, the Jazz had money available, so they took him in to take a look at him, and now he's playing a different game. You're exactly right. A lot of people lose sight of the fact that he's really, basketball-wise, just entering his prime. He's in that same window that Lauri Markkanen is in. They're the same age. And so has he refined his game? Has he been able to change some of his game enough that it fits in? Is it, if you want to take the negative view, is it because he's with a team that's not expected to win and a team that's struggling to win games right now? So when you have those games and you're in those games on that side of it, there's less pressure on you. And if you have less pressure to produce, maybe you play more freely. And if you play more freely, maybe your real skill level or talent level comes out. It's all those things, and that could be combined. And so what you're looking at is a guy who, again, it's only 20 games into the season, so we're a quarter of the way into the season, but he has played a lot better. He's played, for me, a lot better as a 5, but in recent games, they've had him and Markkanen and Kessler on the front line as their starters. And so he's still producing some. I think it's going to be interesting because do they want to pay him, that kind of money for what they're getting as the end result for the team, which is not very many wins, right? And so maybe this is a great showcase for him to show other teams, hey, I can be a contributor and do some different things on a winning team. Maybe they'll look at moving him, closer to the trade deadline, or maybe they see him as, maybe we're uncovering a guy who can be part of our rebuilding program, and we can fit him into some hole that will help us going forward. That's been fascinating to me. I think that's been the main storyline so far this first quarter of the season for the Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, Lowry's awesome, so there's really nothing new to talk about with Markkanen because he's under contract. They can't trade him. He's here for a while. I think Walker's played himself back into the equation of a big who you want to keep seeing grow to be here for a while. And John is an interesting case study because at the very least, you now have showcased a player in a spot where maybe somebody calls you prior to the deadline to give you something real for him. And at the very most, you found potentially another piece to the puzzle that you want to keep on your roster. So there's no downside to what John's done this year.
And again, Spence, this is all part of that, the analogy we've used before in terms of how the Jazz are approaching this process of theirs is, like the old miner prospector panning for gold in the stream, and he puts his pan in there and he gets the water and everything, and he shakes it around and shakes it around and gets rid of all the rocks and the sand, and maybe finds a little nugget in the pan or something. And this is what the Jazz are doing. They're giving different guys different looks at different positions and seeing if anything hits or anything comes up that maybe they hadn't seen before. And maybe, even though the focus, of course, has been on the group of draft picks they've had the last 2 years, maybe John Collins has entered into that fray and said, hey, I'm still here, and I can do some things here. And I don't know if the 180 thing is sustainable all year long, but just the fact that he's in that area, in those statistical categories, really says something about the skill level that he has. And maybe there's something that Will Hardy and his coaching staff can mine with his game that can help them going forward.
All right. I'm gonna make an attempt here. I'm gonna do a Sports Talk Radio attempt to try to make this topical for our last piece of content here before we catch a break, because I've read and heard and seen a lot of people drawing a straight line between what BYU basketball is building and what Ryan's building with the Jazz. That's not how that works. Okay, it's BYU's not the Jazz farm system. AJ DeBanza is not going to be a Jazz man because he's playing for BYU for 5 months. Yegor Demon, the kid who's going to be a lottery pick, maybe top 5, he's not going to be a Jazz man unless they draft him. Neither will Cannon Catchings or any of the other talented young players they have. But is there a benefit that Ryan is intentionally trying to create, bankrolling BYU basketball, that could benefit the Jazz long term? Like, one thought, if it's not talent for talent, because again, you can't just take BYU players and put them on the Jazz. That's not how that works. Could there be some sort of like AJ DeBanza has a positive experience in Utah and therefore players want to sign? I don't know. I'm trying to stretch my mind here to create a topic that might be kind of interesting. You were in a front office for 40 years. Is there any tangible benefit as far as what Ryan is doing for BYU that could benefit his pro basketball team?
Sure. Well, there are a couple things. One is that by having that kind of a player, and we use him, the DeBanza kid, as just as a hypothetical, as long as he's in the BYU program, as long as he's on the campus, those coaches, the people who are around the program, the Ryan Smiths, the Danny Ainges, or whatever that have tight connections with them, they're getting a firsthand look at who he is outside of the basketball world, right? So what kind of a kid is he? How are the coaches dealing with him? How does he react to coaching? What kind of kid is he on the campus? Is he a social kid? Do people like being around him? Does he have that kind of energy, personality? Is he a guy who's just out for himself? All these things you try and evaluate off the court are the things that they're going to have firsthand knowledge of, more so than anybody else, because they're around it 24/7 for this long time period that he would be here, right? So they get to experience that firsthand, so they know what that's all about. The other part of it is, they don't draft him, somebody else gets him. Again, we're just using the Banza kid as an example, and 5 years from now, 7 years from now, he's in the middle of his NBA career, whatever, and he's killing it, and he becomes a free agent. He does the Gordon Hayward thing and becomes an unrestricted free agent at age 26, 27, what have you. And he goes, yeah, when I was at BYU and I lived there, I really liked the people there. I liked the people that were around. I loved the, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so that gives them a leg up now to instill that knowledge in that person, so that when they, if and when that time should ever come, that may help them in a free agent recruiting process to say, hey, you may, hey, no, I know what Utah is all about because I lived it, and that could help them in that regard. So yeah, there are some benefits that can help.
Okay.
Does it ever happen? Who knows? And we'll see. But those are certain things that are pluses for you when you're trying to make decisions down the road.
Okay, no, that's good insight. So it's not nothing, and we'll see how it plays out. Great to see you. We'll set you loose
Same
so you
here.
can go put the star on top of the tree. At least you'll do that, yeah?
Well, my wife does it all, and she does a great job, and she's the expert. She knows what's going on. I'm just the guy sitting in the back of the bus.
Well, we always love having you, my guy. Good to see you.
Thanks, man.
Richard
Thanks,
Smith,
Spence.
40 years with the Utah Jazz front office. Appreciate his time. He'll be back next week. We're live today at ARUP Blood Services. Come on by and say hi. 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Help save lives. If you donate blood, you'll actually save 3 lives. That's the amount of blood you donate in order to save 3 different lives. So if you're looking for something to do this holiday season to give back to the community, stop by 9786 South Sandy Parkway at ARUP. My friend Deb Jordan stops by once again. Deb, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Let's-
Great to have you here, Smitty, too.
Oh, thanks, Deb.
I turned his mic down.
Oh,
He
sorry.
says thank you very much. All right, let's start with blood drives. Let's hear about some good information with your blood drives.
Yeah, blood drives are a great way for the community to get involved. It's really convenient. You can have it at your business, your church group. We do 9 to 10, 11 blood drives a week, and it's for 25 to 50 people. But it's a great way, even like as we were talking about the University of Utah alumni. They have businesses, they have finance companies, they have real estate agencies here. It's a great way for you to reach out. You can just call me, Deb Jordan at ARUP, and we'd love to set one up at your business.
801-584-5272.
Correct.
All right, give us a call if you want to organize a blood drive, do some good this holiday season. For folks that don't have time to do that today,
Right.
we're asking them to come in and donate some blood, and we're also giving them some extra added benefits.
Yeah, we have $10 Megaplex gift cards for our blood donors. We have $20 Amazon cards for our platelet donors. And we have this great new drawing for $100 Amazon card to help you with the Christmas holiday. We're doing 1 winner per day, so 31 winners in December.
There you go. And it needs to be underscored that ARUP is the sole blood provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute. And as we talked about a couple of segments ago, we've got a lot of U of U alums in the market. It's where I went to school. So, talk about the necessity of making sure the U of U Hospital and the Huntsman Cancer Institute have the blood they need this holiday season.
I think we need the Utes' help. I think they need to realize that we're the sole provider. That means no one else in the state of Utah is really matched up as that hospital partner. So we need the Utes' help to say, I can save a life, I can come down, I can send my college kid who's home for Christmas, I can make sure that my high school kid signs up for their high school blood drive. But this is a family. We want to keep it in the family, and we really need everyone's help.
And then finally, after you're done, it's very relaxing and enjoyable in your lounge here where folks can just snack on. You have the best snack mix I've seen, all types and drinks, and people can hang out and feel better, and then they drive home.
Yeah, I'm good at the quality control. I'll
There you
try
go.
that Twinkie and I'll try that cookie and make sure the orange juice is perfect. So
I
it's a
like
great
it.
place to rest and recuperate after you donate.
Great. All right, so it's 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Best thing to do is throw that in your Google Maps or your Waze or whatever you use, then just follow it. 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. Questions, you can dial 801-584-5272 or visit utahblood.org online. All right, Deb, chat in a bit.
Thank you so much.
All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Coming up on the other side, we'll do a little hockey. Former general manager of the Rangers and the Islanders, Neil Smith, stops by. Andy Larson from the Tribune. We're back to college football in the 5 o'clock hour of the Drive on a Wednesday, right here on ESPN 700. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. And we start our 4 o'clock hour. Porter, I'll bring you in. Wednesday, 4:04. We have some breaking news on the program. Why don't you fill the listeners in?
Yeah, Devin Dampier, New Mexico quarterback, of course, a guy that's been alongside with Jason Beck and Coy Detmer at the University of New Mexico, has officially committed to the University of Utah.
There you go. So Devin Dampier is your new quarterback up on the hill, and I would imagine there will be a couple of other additions to that room since, everybody left. But Devin Dampier, the newest member of the Utah football program after a great year under center for Jason Beck and New Mexico. So we will continue this conversation coming up in just a little bit, but let's do a little pro hockey now as the Utah Hockey Club coming off a entertaining but rough loss to a very good team last night here in Salt Lake City. The Wild got them 5-4. Fun article up on ESPN.com about Mikhail Sergachev, and our weekly guest to talk NHL is the great Neil Smith on a Wednesday. Neil, happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Happy Wednesday to you guys.
Appreciate the time today. So it was an entertaining game, and the Utah Hockey Club were able to light the lamp 4 different times, but Minnesota got them 5. And Minnesota, as we've talked about, is off to a tremendous start. They've gained even now with Winnipeg after the Jets just, jetted out of the gates, not to be, kind of redundant there. But Wild 5, Utah Hockey Club 4. So entertaining game, but Minnesota continues to play really, really well. Give me your thoughts, Neil.
No, they do. And you know what's impressive about Minnesota is the fact that they're so good defensively, and they last year and early this year depended on that defensive game and holding you to, very few shots and very few. Now they can play it the other way, as you saw in that game, where they can outscore you if they have to, and it's too bad because Utah got up by a couple. Utah started scoring power play goals again, but Minnesota found a way to force it into overtime, and then of course anything can happen in overtime. Minnesota got the winning goal, but you know what? They're a good team. Minnesota has found a way to play both ways. They've got a superstar. I was saying today to my co-host Vic Morin on our show that Kirill Kaprizov could be and should be a candidate for MVP in the NHL for the Hart Trophy. He's that good, and 18 goals already this season, and that tells you something about the Wild. They've got a player that good.
So since you and I last spoke, the Utah Hockey Club actually hit the road last weekend and grabbed 2 wins. It was their first back-to-back win stretch since the start of the season when they won 3 straight. So 5-2 at Buffalo, 4-2 at Philly, aggregate 9-4 over 2 games on the road. What'd you make of the Hockey Club hitting the road and getting 2 wins over Buffalo and Philadelphia?
Well, let me remind you of our conversation last week. And when we spoke last week, you said to me, what do you see for these 2 games coming up against Buffalo and Philadelphia? And I think I said to you, I think they're very winnable for Utah because both those teams are, struggling at times. They're up and down. And sure enough, Utah was able to go into Buffalo and then on a back-to-back, which is very impressive. Back-to-back beat Philadelphia as well. And then, get a point out of the Minnesota game, albeit they lost, yes, but they got the point. So when you think about it in total, they got 5 out of a possible 6 points in the last 3 games, and 2 of the games were on the road in enemy territory in the East. And so, you know what, that's pretty impressive. Their power play is back going again. They're 3 for 6 lately, and their penalty killing has been really good. So, you know what? I think things are right at the very moment, and that's all you can go by. Are pretty good for Utah.
So Connor Ingram has been hurt, and according to reports, it looks like he's going to start skating here in the next little bit. But the fact of the matter is, as we've talked about, the results when Connor was healthy and between the pipes were very, very inconsistent. Vejmelka stepped in, and he's done a good job. We've seen the Stuber kid, who I don't know much about, a couple of times to relieve Vejmelka. But do you think, Neil, when Connor is, well, and he's now cleared to skate, but when he's fit and in form and ready to go, does he just get the starting job back, or are we still going to see this kind of revolving door for goalies for the Utah Hockey Club?
I think what you're going to see is Coach Chorney put the guy who's playing the best in the net, and he's got to win games. He doesn't have to worry about making people's egos feel good that they're the number one or the number two. And, Stauber came in and played really well. I happen to know Stauber's father, Rob Stauber, from way back. He played at Western Michigan, where I played, albeit years after me, but was a pretty good goalie in his own right. His dad was. And Jackson came in and pitched a shutout for Utah. So, you know what? That's exciting because that's a young guy, and who knows what his future is. Vejmelka has been good for Utah. Connor Ingram has got to win that job back. He's got to come in and when he gets the opportunity to play, he's got to come in and do really well and get over the .900 save percentage that you need to be a starting goaltender.
So Utah Hockey Club hits the road. Their morning skate at Ball Arena, 11:30 tomorrow, and then they're going to play the Avs. Give me a thought on what we could see coming up for a road trip for the Hockey Club tomorrow against the Avalanche.
Well, it's interesting. They go against the Avalanche, and then they go against San Jose. And San Jose and the Avalanche switched goalies last week. If you remember,
That's
the
right,
Avalanche have done a wholesale trade of their goaltenders. They sent Annunen away, first of all, and then Alexander Georgiev hit the road to San Jose, and in came Blackwood into Mackenzie Blackwood was traded from San Jose into Colorado. So Colorado midseason has two new goaltenders, Scott Wedgwood coming in from Nashville on a trade, and then they have, as I just said. So it's an interesting game against Colorado. I think they're playing a lot better since they know that they've got somebody in the net that they can depend on, that they can take chances and maybe not get scored on immediately. They're a high-powered offensive team. They got guys that are great. Rantanen last night got 3 goals and 2 assists in the game, 5 points in one game. He's a super player. And McKinnon and McCarr are obviously perennial all-stars. So they got a tough go going into Denver and playing the Avs. They got a lot better opponent when they play San Jose, who's in a total rebuild. And as I said, they now have Colorado's goaltender in Alexander Georgiev.
Wonder how you would characterize, we're sitting here now almost 30 games into the season. Some teams have played 30. The Utah Hockey Club have played 28. 29 points through 28 games, 12, 11, and 5. Would you consider the start on schedule based off of your expectations for the year? Have they been a little better, a little worse through almost 30 games? Big picture thoughts on the Utah Hockey Club.
If you look at the standings, they're in that middle pack. So look at the Western standings. 4 teams beneath them, they're out of it. Okay, they're out of it. And then the Utah and a few other teams that are fighting to get up to that wild card spot. That's where I thought they'd be. They should be in there fighting to get into the wild card spot. I mean, we've said that since the summer. They're a young team. Their first year in Utah, first year with new ownership. They weren't able to do much in the summer because all of the transition. So they're exactly where I thought they'd be. I didn't think they'd be a bottom feeder with the Chicagos and the San Jose's and the Anaheims. I thought they would be fighting for a wild card spot. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see them in the fight for the wild card.
All right, Neil, before I set you loose, I want your most overperforming, surprising team so far this year, and then on the other side, the team that's been most disappointing to you in all of pro hockey.
It's very easy, Spence. The overperforming, or not overperforming, but performing above expectation is Washington Capitals. Spectacular start to their season. Just spectacular. Have been, nobody could have predicted that they would be this good, and hats off to the management for the additions that they made during the summer and the way that this team has gone up. And they're winning without Alexander Ovechkin, so when he comes back, they're going to be even better. Comes back from the leg injury that he's got. In the disappointing category, that's really easy too, because the Nashville Predators spent a lot of money in the summer. They brought in stars like Steven Stamkos and They brought in Marcia So from the Vegas Golden Knights, and Brady Shea came in on defense. These were all good players, well known, and yet they can't get off the schneid at all. I mean, they're out of the playoffs. They're terrible. I can't tell you why they've been so bad, other than I can tell you they have been so bad. So on the most disappointing, the Nashville Predators. On the most surprisingly good is the Washington Capitals.
Where can our listeners go get your pod, Neil?
Everywhere that podcasters are, anywhere that you can get podcasts, you can get NHL Wraparound. If you want to see my ugly mug, you can see it on YouTube. We're on YouTube. And if you want to listen to us, we're on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and all those. Or if you want to go to our website, nhlwraparound.com, you'll find all the episodes on there. So hopefully we're going to get some listeners from Salt Lake City.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure, and we'll get you back on next week.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, that's the great Neil Smith, our Behind the Glass segment. He was the general manager of the New York Rangers when they won the Stanley Cup in '94, spent time with the Islanders, the Red Wings as well. That's brought to you today by our friends at Clearwater Distilling. Check them out. It's the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays. Holidays are here. Keep them in mind. Make Clearwater a one-stop shop with all their bottles, their swag, and their gift cards. It makes the perfect stocking stuffer. It's the perfect time, too, because they just did a major rebrand of their cinnamon whiskey. It's now called Canella Cinnamon Whiskey, formerly known as Scandalous. Check out their shop in Pleasant Grove. Plan a tasting or buy a bottle or a cigar. And again, if you need a spot to celebrate the holidays with your loved ones or your coworkers, make it Clearwater Distilling. Their Victorian tasting room makes a great date night or a fun activity anytime. You can buy their spirits and stay liquor stores online or take a trip to their distillery at clearwaterdistilling.com. All right, we're live today at ARUP Blood Services, drinking out of a fire hose a little bit, so I'm going to bring in Porter. Let Neil go a little bit early because there's massive news coming down the pipeline. Devin Dampier has committed to the University of Utah. Porter, what should our listeners know about their new quarterback?
Yeah, well, obviously, man, this is a player that Utah has targeted for the last week or so, ever since Jason Beck and Coy Detmer were brought on staff for Utah. They wanted their guy in one Devin Dampier, the quarterback of New Mexico. And, you know, there's a lot to like. Dual threat guy for sure. I don't know that you necessarily compare him to a player that's been here at Utah. I don't think he's a Tyler Huntley, but he is a guy that can throw the ball and create with his legs. 2,500 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing in 2024, Spence. There is one player in FBS football that has matched those numbers. It is one Devin Dampier. The one thing that you look at is maybe a concern, a negative on his 2024 film is the turnovers. He's got 12 interceptions, which is right there with his touchdowns. Quite a few of those were tipped. There's a lot of kind of squeezing stuff into tight windows. That's something he'll definitely work on up here at the U. And I think it's a good get. And when your quarterback room, Spence, looks like it did for Utah yesterday, well, you're going to take just about anyone you can get. So to get a guy who, like I said, has the passing and rushing yards that no one else in college football has right now, it's a positive.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind here, and who knows what's true and what isn't when it comes to the way news is broken online for folks that pretend to do things like this for a living. I read yesterday that he had spoken with Auburn, and they need a quarterback. And Duke's quarterback is in the transfer portal. Miami's going to be looking for a new quarterback. So it wasn't just Utah in on Devin. And I bring that up because for people that were a little bit skeptical about the Jason Beck hire, maybe this satisfies some of those concerns, because if this was a package deal and Utah didn't just hire an offensive coordinator, but they found a way to get a starting quarterback next year, that feels like, at least on paper, a bit of a slam dunk home run hire.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, it's all kind of interconnected, intertwined, and was in the works long before this. But that doesn't mean it was necessarily a done deal just because you had Jason Beck in the room, just because you had Coy Detmer in the room. You know, 5-10 years ago, you probably would have been like, oh, yeah, they're bringing their quarterback. But now you had to contend with, yes, Auburn and several other schools, not only saying, hey, yeah, come play for us. You got a scholarship, you got a spot on our team, but we also got $500,000 in NIL money for you as well. That's something that you just have to deal with in today's game, and unfortunately, there's no guardrails there. So we're going to have to deal with it until there are. And yeah, Utah wins out on this one, but we're going to have to wait until the end of what is the transfer window, I guess, even though there's football still going on. Don't ask me how I feel about that. We're going to have to wait that out to see where Utah falls in totality.
Porter, how do you feel about that?
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's insulting to the players, the coaches, the admins that have to deal with it. It's a joke. In the NCAA, whoever is leading that bus should do something, I guess, maybe.
Well, the other thing that comes into play is for coaches, and look, it's one thing to play in a bowl game, and I do think BYU, Colorado, and the Alamo Bowl is very intriguing, and Coach Prime came out and said that all of his guys are playing. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders. I would imagine the same thing is true for Kalani's club, but the coaches that are in the expanded 12-team CFP, this is unfair to them.
Yes.
Because here's the deal that maybe people don't fully grasp. These players that are playing in the 12-team CFP, they still are weighing offers right now because while they don't have to announce their intention, they have to be in the portal prior to December 28th. They can decide where they play later on. It doesn't really matter. But imagine if you're Sark. Imagine if you're Kirby. Imagine if you're a coach trying to get your players ready to potentially win a national championship, and they're getting phone calls when you're not practicing or playing from these seedy agents who apparently some of them are taking as much as 20% commission, which is like 15 or 16% more than NFL agents take. And they're preying on these kids, Porter, that are still in the midst of trying to win a national championship. It's incredibly unfair to these coaches.
And that's the part that really grinds my gears is that it's, yes, during football, it's a transfer window that should be moved to a point where classes are out and football is over. But it's also the fact that, as you mentioned, there's these seedy – and listen, I've met some of these guys. I'll even say some of them are cons, like point blank. And they are some approved by universities, depends where you're at. I think the U does a good job of trying to keep it, right, the collective as one thing. But depending on where you are and how big the recruit or the school you're at is, there are these guys who are completely unqualified. They're not registered as agents. They're just a friend or an acquaintance of some sort that knows this kid. And like you said, they're taking 20% in some cases of their money, which if these kids weren't 17, 18 years old, they might know and understand that is an absurd commission. And it sucks because there should be oversight. There should be guardrails. The fact that players are getting paid, the fact that they have free agency, all of these are good things. But we're almost putting it to a point where you're making it a detriment to the players, to the coaches, instead of a positive thing, which it totally should be.
And I realize I'm in danger of not just beating a dead horse, but digging the dead horse up and then burying it again, then digging it up and then kicking it in the head. Do you know why agents in pro football have a cap as far as their commissions go?
Why is that, Spence?
Because it's a pro model, and you collectively bargain, and the players unionize, and then they negotiate with the leagues, and then the agents aren't allowed to act like there's no there's no guardrails in place. There are rules in place in the professional model where agents are curtailed and corralled. So yet again, another issue that is plaguing college football and, quite frankly, taking money out of the pockets of these young men that would be solved by allowing the players to unionize, collectively bargain, and come to an agreement so every issue that is plaguing college football would at least have guardrails.
Yeah, that's where we're at the moment, right? It's something where I think the majority of people agree that the freedom that players have, the ability to get paid on their name, image, and likeness, it's all good. But when you don't put guardrails and the stuff around that, it just sends everything into chaos. And when I talk about guardrails, I'm not saying, oh, you can't transfer, oh, you can't get paid. I'm saying just move the dates. Just move the simple things that we can do to clean this process up so that you don't have, as you mentioned, free agency during the season in which players are about to go into a 12-team college football playoff that the whole world should be focused on right now. Not transfer portal, not this weird pay-for-play, here, come play for us, we'll offer you more than they can. It's a mess. And, yeah, I'm with you. I hope that they can find some middle ground, some safe landing spot. But, and this is a conversation much wider than sports, I don't know in the very near future you're going to see many large-scale institutions have more regulations than less. But, hey, I don't have to go there.
Non sequitur on a Wednesday from Porter. According to ESPN's scouting rank, Devin Dampier is the number 7 quarterback available on the transfer market, and Utah was able to dial him in. I'm not saying he's Jaden Daniels, let me be clear, but he plays that way, okay? And obviously Bronco goes to Utah State, Jason Beck goes to the Utes, and Devin Dampier has transferred officially from New Mexico to the University of Utah, so Utah now has their starting quarterback in the form of one Devin Dampier. All right, more on this coming up in just a little bit. We are live on site at ARUP, but before we get to my friend Deb, we welcome in Ryan from the Dish Pros. 3 very affordable options. We're talking your cable bill. We're talking your wireless bill. Internet options, too, if you dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Yeah, this is an awesome opportunity, and we've got this stacked offer with Dish. And guys, it's just money in your pocket, and these promotions, they're really designed to entice you to want to switch. And so I get it, you've been with one provider for a long time, but you know you're overpaying. Your bill has gone up and up. Listen, save yourself $70, $100+ bucks a month by a simple phone call and upgrade. Bigger DVR, auto records the locals, auto hops commercials. Nobody does this. Remote locators are built in on every single receiver, and it even auto records your favorite team's games for you. Plus, you have access to all your DVR content and all your shows anywhere with the Dish Anywhere app. And Dish has moved with the times. They've added all the streaming apps, and so you have access to all that within the system. And this works on all the TVs. So all your TVs that are set up on Dish have access to the streaming apps. And most of us have Amazon Video Prime because you have Amazon Prime. But Netflix, we all have to pay for, and that's probably the most popular app out there. So why don't we throw that in also free for 2 years, guys? This is worth $370+. If you're not interested in that offer, say, hey, I want to do a $200 gift card, and we'll set you up with that. Call us up today. Take advantage of this. This is free money in your pocket just by picking up the phone and calling us. Let us upgrade you. We've got a bunch of different internet providers. And listen, fiber, a lot of the fiber providers get a 20% rate increase. It's huge. Call us up, lower that bill, back down, get a better service. One of the providers is offering a 50-inch TV for new customers. This is, like I said, free stuff, right? That's what we're all about. We'll throw in dinner at JCW's. We'll have you installed as early as next day. Ask about the wireless providers also. Free iPhone or Samsung. Lower your bill $20 a month. Use the same cell towers. Just pay your bill to a different provider. And, guys, the process is not that difficult. You call us up. We pick up the phone for you, and they send it to you, and you port your number over, and you're good to go. Call us, 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Professionals. As I referenced, live on site at ARUP Blood Services. More on the breaking news. Devin Dampier is high speed ahead to the Utes. Their starting quarterback appears to be dialed in. But my friend Deb Jordan stops by on a Wednesday. Deb, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much.
I appreciate the time. So we're asking listeners to come by to literally help save a life. And you said something earlier that I did not know, that if you come in for the regular procedure to donate blood, you actually give enough blood to save 3 different lives.
Correct. They break up the blood into component parts. So someone might get one part, another patient might get the other 2 parts, but you can save up to 3 lives.
And all blood types we're taking today, correct?
All blood types. Don't hesitate thinking that we have enough of yours because, O positive is the most popular, but it's also the most popular for the patients. So you might think they have plenty, but we really definitely need it. So
we need it because it needs to be underscored. We are a radio show that's based in Salt Lake City. We're the home of the University of Utah Athletic Program. And you are the sole blood provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute.
And those institutions are growing. They're expanding. There's more operating rooms. There's more cancer patients that we're seeing. So we want to make sure that we have enough blood. We always want the blood on the shelf, not a after the fact, can you help us replenish? And so, calling our youths and making sure that they understand the relationship and our hospital partner, but also making sure that for 35 minutes you can save a life. We're all overwhelmed at Christmas. Lots of offers, lots of things coming out our way. But this is the only one that you can really do in 35 minutes to save a life.
And if you're looking for some stocking stuffers or something to help your Christmas budget, we are incentivizing people today as well.
Yeah, so blood donors get a $10 Megaplex gift card, and the platelet donors get a $20 Amazon gift card. That's always a great stocking stuffer. And we also have a brand new promotion in December. Every single day we're pulling a name of a donor, and they're getting a $100 Amazon gift card.
Which would be an incredible stocking stuffer
it's
for
a lot
sure.
of Christmas presents.
All right, Deb, before I set you loose, if we have listeners out there that are business owners, or if they're in charge of a group of church members or something, and they want to put something together to do some good with a blood drive, you guys can help them facilitate that, yeah?
Yeah, we're always looking for people. For businesses, it's a lot of team building. They want to do something together for the holidays or a service project. A lot of real estate or development offices, they come in for a quarterly meeting. We could have a blood drive on that day when they have the most amount of people in the office, but it's a great thing to do with your coworkers.
And how can they get a hold of you to put that together?
They can check out utahblood.org or 801-584-5272 and ask for Deb.
Great. Deb, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, live today at ARUP Blood Services. Come on by and say hello. $10 Megaplex gift card if you donate blood, $20 Amazon gift card, donate some platelets, and then you're entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card as well. One winner each day. Come on by at 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy, or give them a call at 801-584-5272. You can get more information online at utahblood.org. Utah football has a new quarterback. We'll talk about that coming up in just a bit right here on ESPN 700. All right, we're live today at ARUP Blood Services. Come on by and save a life. Save 3, actually. You donate blood. It's enough blood to save 3 lives at 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy, sole provider to the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute. So give local and save local. Utah football has a new quarterback, Devin Dampier, New Mexico. Of course, played under Jason Beck, who is now the offensive coordinator. And according to ESPN Scouts Inc. department, Devin is the number 7 ranked quarterback in the portal, and he is high speed ahead to Salt Lake City. All right, Andy Larson, Salt Lake Tribune, covers the Jazz, does a data column, does a bunch of different things. Andy, happy Wednesday. How we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I will not ask you to break down the Devin Dampier to Utah news. We will not ask for the Andy take on that, but we will stay in the college space, as really there's no other way to spin it. A historic day for Brigham Young University yesterday, and we'll see what the future holds, if this is the beginning of building a college basketball powerhouse. But A.J. DeBanza, the number 1 pick, at least the anticipated number 1 pick in the 26th draft, and the highest-ranked recruit in the country, is going to play basketball at BYU. Andy, what's your reaction?
Look, it's really awesome. It's really awesome for us in the state of Utah to have the number 1 high school player play here. Like, you know, within driving distance of Salt Lake City is incredible. I mean, I think if anything, it's almost kind of like underrated the amount of attention and focus this is going to be. This is going to lead to kind of in our market. I mean, I think you know, college basketball is in the modern era kind of driven by these one and done stars, right? And by the very top level one and done guys. And AJ DeBanza is not only just like a normal one and done guy, not only just like a typical kind of number 1 recruit. This isn't an Isaiah Collier situation. This is like a Zion Williamson. This is like a big deal RSCI, you know, like number 1 RSCI guy coming to play basketball here in Utah. So like, even if you're a Utah fan, BYU fan, whatever, like this is actually kind of an exciting thing. And maybe it's just like kind of my NBA goggles here, but to have him start his NBA career in Utah is something that I'm kind of excited to see up close.
And I had obviously heard of the kid because he played a little high school basketball here, but I will admit to not knowing as much about him upon the announcement as I probably should have. So we've learned since that he actually signed in November, and I've watched a ton of tape and read a ton of analysis on him. And Andy, you know the deal. You've been watching and covering basketball for a number of different years, and when you're scouting a high school kid or scouting a college kid, prospects like 25 to 30 through like 150, it's like, all right, what exactly is different about this player to that? But the ones that are different immediately, and this kid just, his game is loud. He pops right off the screen. He's got everything you need. He's legitimately 6'9". He's legitimately long. He can legitimately shoot. He can handle. And I kind of like what I hear from him when he's interviewed. According to what I read, you know, the Tyron Stokes kid is the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 pick in 2027. Cooper Flagg, as you and I have talked about, the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 pick in 2025. And AJ's the odds-on pick to be the number 1 pick in 2026. But I saw a CBS poll to NBA scouts of the 3, who would you have if they were in the same draft? And they overwhelmingly said AJ. So, like, according to what I've read over the past 24 hours, he's thought to be like the best prospect potentially in the next 3 drafts. Is that jiving with what you're hearing?
Yeah, man, like I don't wildly disagree. And I think like I would have some real, you know, like I would have some thoughts on Cooper Flagg versus AJ DeBanza, right? Like I do think Cooper has a little bit more feel. I think he's a little bit better, a lot better on the defensive end. I think there's like some what kind of these scouts call micro skills, like kind of small, kind of know the game kind of things that Cooper Flagg does better than AJ DeBanza. And by the way, they're pretty similar ages. I mean, Cooper Flagg's doing what he's doing at Duke at 17. But look, AJ is absolutely like one of the 3 or 4 best prospects in the last 10 years. I think that's fair to say. Like, I don't want to use the word generational because he's not, you know, it's not 1 out of 20 years. I don't think he's Victor Wembanyama or LeBron James, but I do think he is kind of in that next tier of prospect. And that means a likely, you know, like a multi-time All-Star, a potential NBA championship winner, a potential MVP, like a really, really, really good prospect. And look, there are so many different ways that this game can go wrong. I wrote a breakdown column for the Tribune today. Like just the athleticism, the first step, the shake on his moves at that size is really impressive. But he's not selfish either. So many of those, drive to the rim, scoring dunk guys are not passers, and he will pass, and he's pretty good at it. And when he chooses to focus on the defensive end, he's good on that side of the ball too. So there's so much awesome stuff about him, and again, just so excited to kind of watch him play up close and personal over the next year or so.
So Kevin Young and his staff, and Kevin has intentionally built a staff that's littered with ex-NBA staffers, not just coaches, but strength and conditioning, as well as their nutritional advisor. She spent some time with the Phoenix Suns. And you know what's interesting, Andy? I don't know if this is intentional at BYU or if they're just going to kind of luck into this thing. There aren't any other – I was looking today before the show. There aren't any other college basketball staffs that are built like BYU staff, because most people that taste NBA charter food decide they don't want to rent a car and go to the middle of nowhere to recruit young players. They just want to stay in pro basketball. Is there a chance that based off of the way that BYU has built their basketball staff, from start to finish, head coach all the way down to, the nutrition folk, that this could be the beginning of a basketball powerhouse built down in Provo?
Yeah, I kind of think so. And look, it has to go well for AJ, right? Like, he is the test case, and if it doesn't, then all bets are off. But if it does, then I think it could be, because so many of these kids are not thinking, oh, I want to excel at college basketball when I grow up. They're thinking, I want to excel at the NBA level. I want to make millions. I want to make hundreds of millions. I want to win an NBA title. I want to play like LeBron. I want to play like these kids that they watch growing up, right? Like, and they're not watching college basketball; they're watching the NBA game to do that. So, if you can successfully sell yourself as a college program as the college to NBA pipeline, obviously we've seen that work for John Calipari. I think it could work for BYU with a legitimate NBA player development staff around him. Again, it has to work for AJ DeBanza, and if it doesn't work for him, again, it's not going to really sell well after that. But look, if it does, then I do think there's a lot of good stuff there, so long as you can realistically convince Kevin Young to stay at BYU for the next 10 to 20 years after that.
Well, and to your point, we have seen this in the past, because one of the things that I've just chuckled at over the past 24 hours, first of all, Stephen A. Smith was stunned, and he basically asked why BYU? And there have been so many national media members that have no idea why AJ DeBanza is signing with the Cougars. So that's been kind of funny to follow. And we have seen the Ben Simmons to LSU for 1 year blow up in the face of the program. Back in the day, Devon Wagner, who a lot of people probably don't remember, but he was the number one high school prospect. And before Memphis was even decent, went there, it didn't do anything. So in order for this to work, it cannot be a flash in the pan. But he's got the Yegor Demin kid on the roster this year, and, he's potentially a top 10 pick. Next year, as of now, according to ESPN's rankings, they have the number 11 class in the country next season. So it does appear that there is the beginning of what could potentially be a long-term, very elite run for Brigham Young in the Big 12. But here's my question before we do some Jazz stuff. Obviously, Ryan Smith is behind this in one way or another, and I'm sure it's not just Ryan. I know BYU has several seven-figure donors. I think Danny's involved as well. And ultimately, the conversation that needs to be had is whether or not this is something that could prove to be valuable for Ryan as an NBA owner. Now, obviously, it doesn't work like that. If a team has a pick ahead of the Jazz and they want to draft AJ DeBanza, they're going to draft him. It's not a farm system, but are there any direct or ancillary, tangible or intangible benefits for Ryan going all in to support BYU basketball as it pertains to his day job as the owner of the Jazz?
I mean, I think it helps in a few ways. One, gets, Ryan has been on record about this. He is incredibly, I think his number one North Star right now is kind of promoting Utah in kind of the eyes of a national and even international audience, and putting a player who is going to get the number of eyeballs that AJ DeManza is going to get in Utah, I think, is good for that goal. I would say that, like, for the Utah Jazz in particular, probably fewer benefits other than, like, hey, maybe the likes of AJ DeManza comes to Utah and realizes, hey, this is an okay place to be. Maybe you do get you have players who are maybe less likely to not want to go to Utah, or maybe more likely to come in free agency later, but we're talking like percentage points differences here. I mean, I think ultimately kind of that number one point of promoting Utah as a state is probably his number one goal. And, I'm curious to find out too, like from the league office and et cetera, like if there are any rules about not tampering at the pro level, but kind of tampering at the high school level. There are rules about what high school games NBA GMs can go to and whatnot, kind of how that plays out in this NIL space. We'll see. But, I think there are some kind of side benefits to the Jazz here, but mostly this is about kind of both the Utah as a state and obviously growing BYU as a program.
Is there anything fair to criticize? I mean, ultimately, Ryan has made his money. He's a BYU grad. He's a BYU fan. He's been front-facing about all of this. The reports are anywhere between $5 to $7 million. If it's $6 million, AJ DeManza is being paid more to play at BYU than Cody Williams is to play for the Utah Jazz. Is there anything that's fair to criticize about what some people are perceiving to be a conflict of interest?
Look, AJ DeManza deserves more money than Cody Williams does. Like, can I be honest? Like, if we're in a free agent market, let's pretend this is unfettered capitalism for a second, right? Like, who gets more money on the open market? If AJ DeManza were a free agent right now in the NBA, like, he'd get $100 million, not just $7 million a year, but like a 5-year, $100 million contract. Like, he is A, that good right now, and B, will be that good in the future. So, anyway, sorry, I was distracted by that aside. But, like, look, that's kind of the deal is I think he's deserving of that money, and I'm kind of fine with kind of the open market paying for it. Like, no, look, I have a huge problem with then stepping in, giving Ryan Smith taxpayer dollars to build a stadium and what have you downtown, like, the taxpayer element of this, I'm not a fan of. But in terms of, this as its own thing, I think AJ is deserving of this money. And, look, if he is the number one pick in 2026, as an 18-year-old, he's going to be, or I guess as a 19-year-old, then he's going to be making $11.5 million. And that's fine. Like, that's what the NBA collective bargaining agreement has said he's worth, 7, 6, 5, whatever it is that he's making at BYU. Even though I know that's the highest college basketball salary ever by some distance, that feels reasonable to me.
All right, moving over to the Jazz, I guess. What happened in Portland? I will admit to have seen that game, but I saw the score. Like, how did they win by 41 and lose by 42? How'd that happen?
Yeah, I mean, won by 42, lost by 44 the next
there
night,
it is.
Which is kind of crazy. Look, I was in Portland and Sacramento for those games, and by far the biggest difference there is Portland is played extremely poorly and is a very bad team with even a lot of injuries as well. Sacramento is a very good team that played well and made a lot of threes. The Jazz made a lot of threes in Portland and didn't in Sacramento, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, my big takeaway from that Portland game, to be honest, was how bad of a player DeAndre Ayton is. He is the former number one pick himself, is, another one of these really talented high school prospects who popped at Arizona and is just an awful, lazy basketball player right now. And I could not have felt any more strongly that, like, he was a large reason of why the Jazz of all teams are able to get a 40-point lead in that game. The Jazz played well and did some good things. Keontae George defended for the first time, and it was all very good stuff. But, the biggest difference was how good Portland and Sacramento are, and Portland's bad and Sacramento's great.
Last thing that I'll set you loose. John Collins is a 50, 40, 90 guy, Andy. He's 20.
Yeah.
He's 27 years old. Look, I'm not a huge. You know the deal. Not a huge Collins guy. Never have been. There are moments where you're like, he might be good. This might be the best he's ever played in pro basketball. At the age of 27, is there a world where he's around for the long haul, in your opinion?
I mean, I think you can talk yourself into seeing what happens over the next year, and then potentially offering him an extension at lower money than what he's making now. My sense is that neither party really wants to do that, either because the Markkanen, Collins, Kessler front court, it doesn't make a ton of sense. You pretty much already have a power forward in what Lowry, I think that's probably his best, most reasonable position. And then you probably also have a center in Walker Kessler, and you probably would rather keep the younger and I think more defensively impactful player. But look, we talked to John Collins in practice today. I've been impressed with what we've seen from him this year in terms of just finishing stuff around the rim. Like his shots from, I think it's 3 to 10 feet this year, are going in at above 50%. That's hard to do. Most guys are missing kind of those mid-range kind of bunny layups, push, float shots that he's made a ton of this year. So props to him for upping his efficiency. I do still think, it says something that he's having a very good season and it's having these numbers, and, the Jazz have the record they do. I'm not sure that he's a huge player that drives winning in a huge way, but I think he's a nice complementary piece that, maybe makes more sense on a winning team than this one.
Well, that's our best attempt to make the Jazz interesting this week, Andy. We'll try to do better next week, buddy. I appreciate the time, man. Have a good week, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Andy Larson from the Trib. All right, before we catch a break, we are live today at ARUP Blood Services, 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy, and my friend Deb Jordan stops by once again. Deb, how are you?
I'm great. It's so great listening to your show. I love it.
That's really nice of you. I need people to listen, and luckily enough to keep me employed, so I get to pay my bills doing something I love to do. I'm very blessed that way. All right, I'm going to ask you a simple question. What are you asking of my listeners today?
So what we really need your listeners to do is make a pledge. Raise your hand in the car. You're sitting back chilling right now and say, I'll come in and help save a life. We'll do this together. And we have 2 locations, one here in Sandy. We have one up by the U. It's super easy. We're open every day. We take walk-ins. But, it's great weather. Just look out the window. It's great weather. There's free parking. There's no snow in our parking lot. There's great snacks, super friendly staff, and you get to save a life. So we really want your listeners to come in and help us out.
Absolutely. And I want to follow up with one thing, because you referenced 2 locations. And, whenever I go on remote, if it's a business that's never done a remote before, they're like, so are we going to have 7,000 people walk in the door today? I'm like, that's not really how this works. So for people that can come in right now, great. But if for their listeners that are driving around town and like, oh, Spence is here, I can't make it today, they can come in whenever, yeah?
Whenever they want. Think about it. Can you come in before Christmas? Your college-age kids are coming home for the holidays. Come in together. If your high school kids are, out for 2 weeks, come in together. It's a pretty great little family experience when you can say, this is what we did. You get to tell it at the Christmas table. You know what we did yesterday? We went over to ARUP Blood Services and we helped save a life. And it's just for local patients.
For sure. And I was going to follow up. And for our listeners that don't fully grasp what you do here, sole provider for the University of Utah and the Huntsman Cancer Institute. So you're not just saving any life, you're saving the lives of Utahns, of your fellow community members.
Yeah, it's your neighbors, it's your friends, it might be your grandma or your grandpa. Then we want people to realize that we're a small community. This is a community that always gives back. That's the best part about the Utahns, is that they want to give back, and this is the best way to do it. Every day this year, we've given our donors a gift. We've had promotions every single day. I think we're probably the only one that can say that in Utah, that every day in 2024. And we're going to do that again in 2025. So you come in, you get a movie card, or you get an Amazon gift card. We've given away a paddleboard and a barbecue and jazz tickets and Utes tickets. So we really are trying to be creative, and we want to give the listeners, or the donors and the listeners, what they want.
So let's talk about the process of somebody who walks through the door and ends up giving blood. What's the deal?
Yeah, they come to one of our 2 donor centers. We're open 7 days a week. They get greeted by the receptionist. They have a mini little physical. You get your blood pressure checked and your iron levels checked with a phlebotomist. And then just sitting in the chair to donate blood takes about 7 or 8 minutes. The whole process is about 35 minutes. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. You save 3 lives in 35 minutes. Finally, you're incentivizing people to stop by. Let's hear about that.
So we have $10 Megaplex gift cards for our blood donors. We have $20 Amazon gift cards for the platelet donors. They're here a little bit longer. They get to watch movies and be a little bit,
nice.
They're a little bit longer here doing something super important, donating platelets. And then we have a new promotion, $100 every day. We pull a winner every night from who donated that day, and it'll help you with your Christmas groceries, your Christmas shopping, gifts, stocking stuffers. But we have a $100 Amazon gift card for one donor every day.
Well, thanks for having us out. It's been great,
really
Deb.
great.
Good chatting with you, okay?
Thanks so much.
That's Deb Jordan out here at ARUP Blood Services. Stop by, get a $10 Megaplex gift card, $20 Amazon gift card for platelets. And as Deb referenced, you can enter to win a $100 Amazon gift card, and there's one winner each day. Address 9786 South 500 West in Sandy. Call them at 801-584-5272. You can ask about blood drives we can set up at your business or wherever you gather as a community. You can also visit utahblood.org. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Coming up next, Drive at 5, Utah football has a new quarterback. We'll tell you about him right here on ESPN 700. All right, what is going on? Excuse me, what is going on? Drive at 5 time on a Wednesday afternoon. Your commute home on a Wednesday starts right now. It's a chilly Wednesday, December day outside, and of course, as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. We are live today at ARUP Blood Services. We've had a good time out here with my friend Deb and her staff. We're asking you to come by and help save a life. You get a $10 Megaplex gift card if you donate some blood. You get a $20 Amazon gift card if you donate some platelets. And every day they are drawing a winner for a $100 Amazon gift card. So incentivizing you guys to come by and do some good this holiday season. The address is 9786 South, 500 West in Sandy. They also have a location closer to the University of Utah at 565 Comus Drive in Research Park. Give them a call at 801-584-5272 or visit utahblood.org. All right, going to do a little football here in the 5 o'clock hour to take you home on a Wednesday. If you missed Richard Smith, we did a little A.J. DeBanza, a little Utah Jazz. Neil Smith for a little Utah Hockey Club. Then Andy Larson stopped by. My computer just died, so that's bad timing. But Porter, about, hour and a half ago, and we've all been curious as to whether or not we'd hear some news, when we would hear some news, and what that essentially would look and sound like. And, I know there were some people that were a little bit let down that Utah football was not able to get their first two choices for offensive coordinator, who chose to go to Oklahoma and Texas Tech respectfully, and Jason Beck ended up being the hire. Well, we now got some news that Devin Dampier has made up his mind. New Mexico quarterback who had a really good year under Jason last year, and according to ESPN Scouts ranked the number 7 quarterback prospect in the transfer portal, has made his intent known. He's coming to Salt Lake City. Devin Dampier is going to follow his offensive coordinator and play some football here in Salt Lake City. Obviously out here at ARUP trying to do the show. So what have we learned about this decision over the past, hour or so?
Yeah, well, obviously it's new. Devin Dampier's a brand new commit for Utah, but it's one guy, right? I think that's the main thing here is that Utah still has a long way to go in the transfer portal, and that doesn't just mean, Spence, a receiver for Dampier or an offensive lineman to protect him. This is talking about the guys in your locker room. Number one, potentially keeping a lot of those guys on site, but you're going to have to go out and replace some of the other holes on your roster as well, or Devin Dampier's not going to make a whole bunch of difference. But if you wanted to zero in on this one in a vacuum, I don't know how much better you could have gone this offseason. Right now, obviously, you mentioned number 7 as far as the quarterback transfer rankings. Is number 1 through 5 really realistic for Utah? I'm not so sure. So you go down that list and you see a guy who played at New Mexico last year, played with Jason Beck, played for Coy Detmer. Devin Dampier, Spence, accounted for more touchdowns in 2024 than the University of Utah. So on its face, that should give you a little optimism for this signing going forward. But again, just a lot to kind of fill in the gaps around Devin Dampier before I can really start to feel real good about this signing.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if we've learned anything over the past couple of years, and Coach Wood and his staff certainly learned this the hard way, you've got to have a number of bodies in that quarterback room you feel comfortable with. Georgia right now, it's interesting because Carson Beck goes down, and the Gunnar Stockton kid, and by the way, if you're named Gunnar Stockton, you have to either be an awesome quarterback or a point guard. There's no other route for you. If you've been named Gunnar Stockton, great quarterback name, but Beck goes down and Gunnar steps in, and it didn't look the same, but it was good enough to get it done, to get the win, to get you into the CFP and win the SEC. And in a way, I've always felt like Kyle has wanted to build his program like some of those physical SEC teams, like a Georgia, that isn't necessarily reliant on having the number 1 quarterback prospect in the country, having the number 1 draft pick at quarterback. A Stetson Bennett who's around, and you win a couple of national championships. But, Georgia clearly has a quarterback room this year where more than a couple of guys they feel comfortable with. And Utah simply hasn't had it over the past couple of seasons, and the proof has been what we've seen on the field. They loved Cam, they loved Cameron, but outside of that, if Cam was not available, which he wasn't, I think 23 of the final 25 games he was eligible for Utah, contingency plans not good enough, not ready for the potential dynamic of Cameron getting hurt, which he continued to do. So Isaac Wilson leaves, Sam Heward leaves, transfer portal, in addition to Brandon Rose. The reports are still out there that Cam Rising is unlikely to come back. So, Porter, this is just the start. And, again, transfer portal technically December 9th through the 28th. And it doesn't mean you have to decide exactly where you're going to play in that time. It just means you have to be in the portal because, there are still college football teams playing football, not just bowl season, but CFP implications, national title as well. So I have to surmise, Porter, that this is just the start of what hopefully, if you're a Ute fan, is a number of different pieces of news. And hopefully after these names start spilling in, this fan base can just chill a little bit because it does feel like it's been a really, really problematic, anxious few days for Ute fans, at least on social media and online.
Yeah, just the first of several dominoes that will fall. I guess I should say Jason Beck and the OC thing was really the first domino, and then, of course, Kyle's decision, which to me was more of a in-the-house thing. They knew what was going on there. It was just us that was kind of fretting about that. But, yeah, they still have some places that they have to turn their attention. Yes, you get Devin Dampier in, and hopefully he can help maybe get some attention from some offensive weapons that want to play alongside him, maybe that have already played alongside him at New Mexico or otherwise. So, yeah, there's still going to be a few dominoes left to fall. But, Spence, you look at the Utes roster, you wonder where that is. The offensive line looks to be in pretty good shape. The defensive line, they feel like they're in pretty good shape as well as far as the transfer portal goes. They've got guys ready to, what do you want to call it, be the next man up, right? They've got guys in the locker room there that are ready to go. Obviously, you turn your attention to the defensive backfield when you've got Cam Calhoun leaving the program, allegedly. We'll find out about that as well. But that's kind of where my attention turns next, Spence, is how do they fill out the roster and where exactly do they turn that attention? I'm looking at the outsides, some wide receivers. You got to shore up that running back room with the departure of Mekhi Bernard, and then the rest is probably on the defensive side and mostly in the back four.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether or not, because there are a number of other players from New Mexico, namely their starting running back and starting wide receiver, as we've discussed on the show all week, you keep hearing these rumors that the Miller Moss kid, the USC transfer, has promised other schools that other USC skill position players have pledged to follow him. I don't know if that's the deal. There are a lot of big-time schools that need a QB, namely Auburn. Miami's going to need one. We could keep going down the list. But any conversation out there about any of these other New Mexico pieces following, Dampier here to Salt Lake?
It's definitely a conversation. Eli Sanders is a running back who had 1,000 yards last year. He had, I think, 10 touchdowns or so. 7.2 yards per carry, too. So Eli Sanders is a good running back target for Utah if you are trying to shore up that running back room. You mentioned it. They've got a wide receiver that is transferring as well in Wysong. So, listen, I do think that there is a strong potential that you see Jason Beck, you see Coy Detmer go and get a few of these guys to come and play with their quarterback in Salt Lake City. But you also have to keep in mind their head football coach, Bronco Mendenhall, also is in Utah now. And he's going to be trying to get some of those guys up to Logan, including that running back. I do know that's part of his plan as well. So, yes, they will try to get some more of these New Mexico guys. That was the fourth-ranked offense in FBS last year. So there are pieces that will benefit your team if you can get them to come up here. But there will be other teams making offers. There will be other teams going after specifically Eli Sanders, and one of those teams is going to be in Logan.
Yeah, and this is an arms race, and I think the other piece of good news today is, and I don't know what the NIL number is. I don't know what the dollar sign is, but I know combined with the announcement that took place yesterday that the number one basketball recruit in America is coming to BYU for a figure that is reported between $5 and $7 million. A lot of consternation among the Ute fan base about is Utah falling behind? Does Utah have the NIL initiatives in place budgetarily, economically? Is Utah in a place where they can do the things that BYU is doing and has already done? And I'm quite sure that Devin Dampier is not getting a check that's in the range of $5 to $7 million like AJ did. But the number 7 ranked recruit in the portal as far as the quarterback position goes is not nothing. And so they're paying the kid. Not sure what it is. The reports are that Cameron was making above $1 million. But Porter, at least for today, Ute fans that were wondering if this program was going to be able to pony up. I mean, again, he's not the top prospect in the portal. He's not the top 2. But at number 7, and again, there were reports this week, he was talking to Auburn. Utah had to write a check of some sort of sizable measure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, they did. That's how you do it in today's game. I know we've spent a good portion of the show on it, but, they ponied up and were able to get Devin Dampier, stuff that he's happy with. Obviously, Utah has, I believe they have in place going forward still the deals with the cars and whatnot. So they've done a good job of making it somewhat valuable on top of the scholarship to be a player here that a player that at least has some NIL value as well. And yeah, Devin Dampier is definitely one of those guys. Not the top quarterback available in the country, but Utah wasn't going to get that guy. That's just the reality of really the pocketbook, right? And the place that they are as a program. I do wonder, Spence, what is next in the quarterback room? Because you've got a few guys that you signed on signing day, but if you're a Utah fan, you got some trauma from the last 2 years, and I know Kyle Whittingham does as well. He's not going to want to go into kickoff with only Devin Dampier as the quarterback he is comfortable with trotting out under center. So it's not only on the defensive side, it's not only in the wide receiver room. They're going to look at the quarterback position as well, and I do wonder what that looks like in the portal in the next couple weeks as well.
And it's also just going to be fascinating up until they figure this stuff out. And if you listen to the show, you know my solution, and it's much easier said than done. It's easy for a radio host to crack his mic and tell you what you should do to fix your business, and it's much more harder in practical application and practice. The pro model fixes this stuff. It just does. It doesn't have to be a complete adoption and copycat model of pro football, but at the very least, contracts have to be put in front of these kids, and there has to be rules and stipulations and guidelines on what the contracts can contain. Because if one school asks you to sign for 3 years until you're ready to go pro, and the other school gives you the option to transfer to and from, that gives the other school the obvious advantage, and then we're back to where we started. And I'm saying that out loud because I'm just really realizing what a different team we're going to be watching next year in Salt Lake will be. Everything is going to be different. Different play caller, different quarterback. There are a number of returning players, but not a ton of the brand guys on the skill position side of things. You're going to see a new quarterback throwing the ball, a new running back running the ball, most likely most all new wide receivers, although Dorian Singer and Devin Dampier are apparently close. Maybe that changes Dorian's mind. The other story we followed today is Cam Calhoun, who kind of rattled the cages of Utah football yesterday by announcing that he was in the transfer portal just a couple of days after tweeting that he was coming back. He has deleted the Utah man in my tweet. Yes, this is sports journalism in 2024. You follow these things. But according to the Salt Lake Tribune, Cam Calhoun was offered, quote, nearly double of the NIL money he was earning from Utah to enter the portal. Now, if Cameron had signed a contract with the Utes, it doesn't matter what you're offered. You're under contract. There's been no official announcement on where Cameron's going to go. But that's the one that rattled the cages of Ute fans yesterday. Since making his decision to enter the portal, he's announced, Cameron has, that he's been offered by Maryland, Wisconsin, which two schools in the Big Ten. Utah doesn't have that budget because no school, if you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, your economic realities are different. Also offered by Louisville, including BYU, Miami, and Houston. So no word on exactly where Cameron will end up, but that's a big loss for Utah football. Friends at Advanced Window Products. The number one rated window company in Utah. They're locally owned, and the sales and installation are in-house. No middleman markup. They build, install, and guarantee for life. Your lifetime warranty is serviced by a local team. So check them out. Was there yesterday with my guys Nate Orchard and Jake Weber. Their holiday special this week is $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. So beat the rush and order today from the factory to your front door in 8 weeks or less. Give them a call at 801-850-9100 and visit them online at advancedwindows.com.